If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon, link is in the description.
Chapter 21. Back at Marineford, everything returned to peace as the remaining Marines carried on with their work. Night quickly approached, and unbeknownst to them, close to a dozen war galleons stealthily made their way towards Marineford. The pirate fleet skillfully navigated through, avoiding the patrol ships of the Marines as if they were aware of the patrol routes, aiding their smooth progress towards Marineford. In the town adjoining Marineford, where all the families of Marine officers stationed at the HQ resided, on the outskirts of the town lay a large plot covered by nature, which was the current residence of Admiral Zephyr. Despite being an admiral, the plot assigned to him was quite large, but the house where Zephyr resided was modest. Inside the house, one could hear the sound of laughter as a small child, about 3 years old, chased a young teen who had a piece of steak stuck to his chin. Zephyr's wife, a woman in her 30s, cherished the moment with a smile on her face. The young teen was their newly adopted son. Their own son had quickly taken a liking to the elder boy in the couple of months since they had adopted him. Though the young boy seemed a bit rigid, he was always diligent and even helped around with house chores. The child expressed his desire to join the Marines, but Zephyr had asked him to wait so he could have a proper foundation before joining the elite training class. In the past 2 months, she had come to accept the young boy as one of her own. Boom! The initial explosion echoed like thunder through the tranquil air of Marineford, shattering the peace and signaling the beginning of chaos. It was swiftly followed by a series of deafening blasts that reverberated across the entire headquarters, rattling windows and shaking the very ground upon which it stood. The warning bells, previously silent and serene, now clanged with urgency, their piercing sound cutting through the night like a clarion call to arms. Inside the Marineford headquarters, the atmosphere shifted from one of tranquility to one of frenzied activity in a matter of seconds. Marines on duty sprang into action, their training kicking in as they scrambled to assess the situation and respond to the sudden threat. In the central command room, officers huddled over control panels, their faces illuminated by the harsh glow of flashing lights as they worked furiously to coordinate a response. Communication lines crackled with urgency as distress signals were sent out, calling for reinforcements from neighboring bases. Outside, chaos erupted as the invading pirate fleet made landfall, their ships crashing against the rocky shore with thunderous force. Swarms of pirates spilled forth, armed to the teeth and ready for battle. They descended upon the marine defenders like a tidal wave, their ferocious onslaught leaving destruction in its wake. Amidst the chaos, shouts and cries filled the air as Marines clashed with pirates in a desperate struggle for control. The acrid scent of smoke and gunpowder mingled with the salty tang of sea air, creating a heady mix that hung heavy over the battlefield. As chaos unfolded, Virgo led Zephyr's wife and son carefully through the back alleys of the town, guiding them towards the center of the HQ, where the central fortress was being reinforced by the remaining Marine forces. The bombardments were concentrated heavily on the town side, where the families of the Marines resided. Those who survived the onslaught scrambled towards the main fortress, seeking refuge amidst the chaos. Amidst the cacophony of destruction, a powerful voice reverberated through the chaotic atmosphere. "Zephyr, you bastard! Come out and face me like a man!" Amidst the chaos and destruction, a hulking figure emerged from the shadows, towering over the surrounding devastation like a colossus of death. It was Captain Darius Bloodskull, a name feared throughout the seas, leader of the infamous Bloodskull pirates, with an active bounty of 1,186,500,000 belly. Standing at a staggering height of over 5 meters, he commanded the attention of all who beheld him. His imposing presence struck fear into the hearts of even the bravest souls, and his very name sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to oppose him. Captain Bloodskull's muscular frame was adorned with scars, each one a testament to the countless battles he had fought and emerged victorious from. With a cruel sneer etched upon his rugged features, he moved through the chaos with an air of merciless determination. His massive blade cleaved through the ranks of Marines with ruthless efficiency. Despite his immense size, he moved with a surprising grace, his movements fluid and precise as he dispatched anyone who dared to challenge him. With each step he took, Captain Bloodskull left a trail of destruction in his wake, his fury unleashed upon all who dared to oppose him. The air crackled with electricity as he unleashed the power of his Logia-type devil fruit, the Zuma Zuma no Mi, transforming his body into a living storm of plasma. As he advanced towards the heart of Marineford, his eyes burned with a fierce determination, his gaze fixed upon his ultimate prize, Admiral Zephyr's family. He held a deep grudge against the Admiral, stemming from a previous encounter where Zephyr had bested him in combat. If it weren't for a stroke of luck, he would have found himself locked away in Impel Down. When members of Cypher Paul approached him with a proposal for revenge, he eagerly accepted, knowing that today he would finally repay the resentment in his heart by taking the lives of Zephyr's loved ones within the very heart of Marineford itself. Darius spotted a rear admiral who had just cut down one of his subordinates as he moved in the direction of the HQ. He didn't need to go searching for Zephyr's family, the Cypher Paul had promised to share their location once it was confirmed. All he had to do was go on a rampage, kill Zephyr's family, and leave the HQ unscathed. With a swift motion, he raised his arm to strike down the rear admiral with one downward stroke. Clang! A hand, coated in armament haki, intercepted the blade, defending the rear admiral's exposed back. Dragon, his hand clad completely in haki, stood unfazed in front of the infamous pirate. Another figure moved past them with blinding speed, cutting down the pirates who were causing havoc. Using his observation haki, Darius identified the two new combatants who had halted his progress. His expression twisted into a scowl upon recognizing them. The man standing before him was none other than the son of Marine hero Garp himself. And the other Marine, moving with incredible speed and precision, was Rear Admiral Bogard, the right-hand man of the Marine hero. For a moment, Darius's mind went into overdrive. There shouldn't have been any Marines of such caliber within Marine HQ. He had confirmed it with the Cypher Paul, with whom he had been in contact. The individuals before him were elites among elites, capable of challenging him head-on. If he had known he would have to face the Marine hero's son, he wouldn't have agreed to this. As Dragon and Darius locked eyes, the tension crackled in the air like lightning before a storm. Without a word, they launched themselves at each other, their movements swift and deadly. Darius shifted into his plasma form, his body becoming intangible as he surged forward with blinding speed, aiming to deliver a devastating blow. Busos Hoku Koka. But Dragon was prepared. He countered with a surge of armament haki, solidifying his own body as he met Darius head-on with a thunderous clash. Your tricks won't work on me, pirate scum. Dragon's voice boomed with authority as he pushed against Darius, their strength matched evenly in the intense struggle. Darius grinned maliciously, his eyes gleaming with defiance. You think you can stop me, Marine? I've faced stronger opponents than you. Their battle raged on, with each strike sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Dragon's mastery of armament haki allowed him to land powerful blows, each strike infused with the force of his will. Meanwhile, Darius's Logia abilities allowed him to evade and counter with lightning-fast attacks of his own. Meanwhile, a few hundred meters away from the clash between Dragon and Darius, a shadowy figure lurked in the darkness, monitoring the unfolding chaos with a sense of urgency. This figure was an agent of Cypher Paul Aegis Zero, specializing in infiltration and reconnaissance. His Paramecia-type devil fruit granted him the ability to remain undetected unless faced with a formidable master of observation haki. Now, he found himself facing an unforeseen complication with the arrival of Dragon and Bogard. Quickly retrieving a transponder snail, the agent made a swift call to execute the secondary plan. We have a change of plans, he reported, his voice laced with urgency. Proceed with the elimination of Zephyr's family. Leave no witnesses behind. I will notify the other party to act immediately. Time is of the essence. Rear Admirals Dragon and Bogard are currently engaged with Bloodskull and his crew on Marineford. We cannot afford to let this opportunity slip away. Complete the mission swiftly before the chaos settles down. This lone CP0 agent understood the gravity of the situation. With only one chance to succeed, he braced himself for the challenges ahead, knowing that failure was not an option. The CP0 agent swiftly relayed his command. Normally, he would have had additional CP0 members for support, but this was a sensitive mission. Therefore, only a single CP0 agent was dispatched. In the event of exposure, he could be swiftly eliminated and branded a traitor to avoid any compromise with the mission. Virgo, someone who had survived the slums of North Blue, was well versed in navigating chaos. His life experiences are currently aiding him in safely escorting Zephyr's wife and child. He wasn't acting out of righteousness, for him, this was simply young Master Ross's orders. If there was one person who held equal prestige in Virgo's heart as Master Daffy, it was Ross. So when Ross and Daffy asked him to become the perfect Marine for the future of the Donquixote family, he readily agreed without a second thought. Virgo also knew that Ross had taken a huge risk in smuggling the mythical Zoan fruit just because Virgo had insisted on consuming one. Virgo had a liking for the unbound vitality trait that came with mythical Zoan fruits, and he had requested a mythical Zoan, believing it to be unattainable. However, Ross selflessly provided the devil fruit just because Virgo had asked for it. Shigan. Virgo, lost in thought about recent events, detected a sudden incoming attack aimed at Zephyr's wife, intended to kill her with a single strike. Reacting swiftly, he employed armament hardening, a skill he had learned from the notes that Ross had sent the Donquixote family. The materials they received were top-notch, as the knowledge was extracted from Garp. During their training, it was quickly identified that Virgo had a high affinity for armament hacking compared to observation hacking. The attack aimed at the woman's heart was deflected by Virgo's interception, but the force of the strike sent him crashing into a nearby wall. Virgo! The woman screamed. "TCH, kid, you sure are troublesome, such a waste of talent." A man dressed in a Marine Rear Admiral uniform now smirked creepily at Zephyr's wife, who was holding her son protectively. You're a Marine. Why are you doing this?" Zephyr's wife couldn't help but ask in shock, realizing their assailant was not a pirate but a Marine officer. "Sorry, miss. Orders from above. I have to complete the mission. You can blame Admiral Zephyr for this. If only he was willing to follow the world government, we wouldn't have to resort to such nasty things," the Rear Admiral mocked while drawing his sword to end Zephyr's family. "Arg!" Virgo launched himself like a bullet, mustering as much haki as he could, aiming a punch at the Rear Admiral's face. However, the man was alert, ray-sheathed the sword, and quickly caught Virgo's arm with his own arm wrapped in haki. Chapter 22. Damn kid, you sure are resilient. The wound on your body has already healed. No wonder you stood back up so quickly. While saying so, the Marine launched a powerful fist attack right into Virgo's rib, knocking the air out of him. However, contrary to his expectations, Virgo wasn't knocked out. This angered the Rear Admiral, who unceremoniously lifted Virgo up by the wrist and launched back-to-back haki-powered punches. One could hear bones cracking and flesh tearing with every punch. Virgo's mouth was now drenched with blood, but he remained conscious. He weakly swung his fist, connecting with the man's face. Although the attack lacked power, the Marine felt it was an insult. "Please let the child go. It's us you want. Please let Virgo live." Zephyr's wife looked at the battered and broken body of Virgo, realizing their assailant's target was only Zephyr's family. She pleaded with the Marine to let go of her adopted son. "Like I said, orders. No witnesses." The Rear Admiral imbued his sword to finish off Virgo with a single blow and then planned to eliminate Zephyr's family. However, just as he raised the sword, his observation haki picked up a new threat. A flying slash imbued with haki flew towards him at blinding speed, aiming to sever the hand that was holding Virgo. Reacting swiftly, he swung his blade to intercept the flying slash. Clang! As the Marine attempted to push away the first sword attack, a second attack was launched from the same direction, aimed at his hand. He pushed away the first attack with all his strength and then quickly retreated a few meters using Soru after letting go of Virgo. "Damn, you guys sure are fast. I only had enough time to kill a dozen pirates." I walked out steadily from an alleyway. If I had been a bit slower, Virgo would have been history. Unlike me, Virgo has not had a proper trainer to guide him in haki yet, so this was the reason for his pathetic display, and he had ample time to grow. He was only 12 years old this year. "Kid, I know who you are. You can blame your luck for being here." The Rear Admiral, who was flexing, suddenly reacted. "Tekai!" Boom! My fist, clad with haki, crashed right into the man's rib, not giving him enough time to react as he was launched 10 meters, coming to a stop while skidding. Although I was faster than him, the Marine reacted at the last moment. Virgo stood up, raising his fist, to join the fight again by my side. I gave him a sideway glance. "Please step aside. You will only be a hindrance if you join the fight." I didn't take my eyes off the enemy, as he was also looking for openings against me. I drew my sword again, poised to strike, while Virgo clumsily wiped the bloodstains from his face and moved towards Zephyr's wife. She quickly started wiping off the remaining blood on Virgo's face, her hands trembling with a mix of fear and relief. With a sudden action, the Rear Admiral launched himself at me, his sword gleaming in the moonlight as he aimed a vicious overhead strike. Reacting with lightning-fast reflexes, I parried his blow with a resounding clang, the force of our clash sending shockwaves rippling through the surrounding area. As I descended from the air with the force of my armament haki-clad strike, the Rear Admiral attempted to counter my assault with a swift upward swing of his sword. Our blades met with a resounding clash, sending sparks flying in all directions as the sheer force of our collision sent shockwaves. With a fierce determination burning in my heart, I pressed forward, pouring every ounce of my strength into my attack. The rear admiral, however, was no ordinary opponent, his skill and resolve matched my own, and he met my onslaught with unwavering resolve. But I refused to back down. Drawing upon my training and experience, I unleashed a flurry of strikes, each one faster and more ferocious than the last. The rear admiral struggled to keep pace, his defenses beginning to falter under the relentless assault. Sensing an opening, I pressed my advantage, driving forward with all my might. With a powerful lunge, I aimed a decisive blow at my opponent's exposed flank, intent on ending the battle once and for all. But the rear admiral was not so easily defeated. With a lightning-fast movement, he sidestepped my attack, narrowly avoiding the full force of my strike. In the same instant, he launched a devastating counterattack of his own, his blade cutting through the air with deadly precision. Reacting with split-second reflexes, I twisted my body to the side, narrowly evading the deadly arc of his sword. With a deft movement, I countered his assault with a lightning-fast rankyaku, sending a powerful air blade slicing through the air towards him. The rear admiral barely had time to react. With a desperate lunge, he deflected the air blade with his own sword, the force of the impact sending him stumbling backward. Seizing the opportunity, I pressed my advantage, closing in on him with deadly intent. Shoring! My blade ripped through fabric, flesh, and bone, sending a severed arm flying through the air. Despite the rear admiral having clad his arm with haki, my own haki completely overpowered him, allowing Kaititsu to slice through his sword arm effortlessly. But I had to commend the enemy. Despite the pain, the man quickly collected himself and retreated to a safe distance. Kid, you are meddling in things that are way out of your league. Will you be able to face the consequences for foiling our plan? The Marine started speaking now that he was at a disadvantage. Man, you sure are pathetic, trying to stall for time in such a crude manner. No matter how much time you stall, your friends aren't coming. Do you think that it was only Dragon-san and Bogart-san who stayed back? I knew the man was waiting for other marine traders who colluded with the world government, but Kuzan was already confronting them. Unknown to everyone, after I had made plans, the entire division under Garp's command stayed back in Marineford. Garp was the sole member of his team who left for the Rocks mission. And one must know that the Marines who served under Garp were elites, and even the regular Marines who served on Garp's ship were the cream of the crop. It sure is frustrating to hold back from killing people like you, but I am sure Garp-sensei will not mind if I kill you. After all, he hates Marines like you the most. I sheathed my blade, already noticing that the enemy was trying to find an avenue for escape. However, I had locked onto all his escape routes with my observation haki. Rokugan. I flickered next to him at blinding speed and launched a devastating attack. The force of the blow sent a massive shockwave ripping through the enemy's internal organs. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to his knees, defenseless against my assault. Damn! It sure is oddly satisfying when you pummel someone with your own fists, but then I guess I prefer swords over fists, I murmured to myself as I picked up the fallen enemy. Although I was only 10, I was tall for my age, just like Daffy. Boom! 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 I repeatedly started punching the now defeated Marine, just so I could vent. I had been holding myself back for a long time since joining under Garp, and punching this man felt oddly satisfying. My life in the Mafia had etched a few things right into my soul, and tormenting my enemies was something I had to do from time to time to feel refreshed. Zephyr's wife, witnessing this gruesome scene, didn't make a sound. She was a practical woman who understood that, if not for my timely arrival, she would have lost everything. She did not have an ounce of mercy for her enemy now. Virgo walked next to me and stood by my side as I repeatedly punched the man in front of me. The man was already dead, his skull was completely smashed and caved in. But I still kept punching, maybe because I had seen Virgo near death and something snapped in me, and Virgo is family. I paused and quickly whispered to Virgo, who immediately clad his back with armament haki and jumped in front of Zephyr's family. Just then, an almost invisible rankyaku sliced through his back, leaving a gaping wound that exposed Virgo's back right down to his spine. Blood splattered across the woman's face, and Virgo fainted as the attack was too much to handle. I had calculated it perfectly, and I had already detected a man hiding, trying to snipe Zephyr's family while we let our guard down. I had also detected an ally rapidly closing in on our position. Ice Age. Kuzan froze the entire street along with the buildings. Just as he landed next to me, the presence that was hiding had already vanished without a trace. Ross, are you all right? Kuzan couldn't help but ask as he saw the now broken corpse in my hand. Despite his concern, I could see something else in Kuzan's expression, perhaps a hint of disapproval, but he held back from saying anything. I dropped the now dead Rear Admiral without paying much heed to Kuzan's unspoken thoughts and moved towards where Virgo lay. Despite the seemingly life-threatening wound on his back, I knew Virgo's life was not in danger. Mythical Zoan fruits were known for their remarkable vitality. With Kuzan's help, I picked up Virgo and escorted Zephyr's family towards the central fortress. As we made our way through the chaos, a few other pirates from the Blood Skull Pirates targeted us, but they were swiftly eliminated by Kuzan. It had been more than 3 hours since the attack on Marineford began, and it was close to midnight. Through the darkness, one could see about half a dozen marine ships quickly approaching Marineford. These were the temporary reinforcements that Kong had mobilized to support Marineford. Originally, he had intended to mobilize troops from Marigosa, but orders from the elders required Kong to remain there, considering the possibility of an attack on Marigosa itself. Hence, he had to reach out to Sabayati to send reinforcements. At the site where Dragon and Darius clashed, everything lay in ruins. The aftermath revealed the devastating extent of their battle, with a part of Marineford completely destroyed due to the epic clash. In the center of the largest crater, amidst the rubble and debris, Dragon stood tall, bruised, and battered, his chest heaving with exertion and his Rear Admiral uniform now in tatters, exposing his upper body completely. Before him lay Darius, broken and gasping for breath with a large fist-sized hole in his chest, his once formidable aura now diminished to a mere flicker. Dragon approached Darius cautiously, his gaze unwavering, despite the fatigue weighing heavily on him. "Who sent you? Who ordered the attack on Zephyr's family?" Dragon demanded, his voice resonating with anger and authority. Darius, though gravely injured, managed a weak smirk. "Ha ha ha, cough. Cough. You're a fool if you believe I'd spill their secrets," he spat out blood defiantly, his voice strained with pain. Dragon's fists clenched at his sides, frustration simmering beneath the surface. He had hoped to extract valuable information from Darius, but it seemed the pirate was determined to remain silent. "You've lost," Dragon stated firmly, his tone unwavering. "There's no escape for you now. Tell me who orchestrated this attack, and perhaps I'll grant you a swift end." Darius chuckled hoarsely, a glimmer of defiance still present in his eyes. "You can't threaten me, Marine. I've faced death countless times, and I'm not afraid to meet it again," he retorted, his voice tinged with bitterness. Despite his injuries, Dragon remained composed, his resolve unwavering. He knew that time was running out, and he needed answers before it was too late. "Darius, listen to me," Dragon urged, his voice tinged with urgency. "If you cooperate, perhaps there's a chance for redemption. Don't let your pride cloud your judgment." Chapter 23. Darius's expression softened momentarily, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. But then, with a defiant glare, he shook his head. "I've made my choice," he rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll take my secrets to the grave." With those final words, Darius's body went limp, his breathing slowing until it ceased altogether. Dragon stood in silence, staring down at the fallen pirate, a mixture of frustration and resignation clouding his features. As the dust settled around them, Dragon knew that, despite the battle won, the true enemy remained at large, unconcerned about the consequences. With a heavy heart, he turned away from Darius's lifeless form, knowing that his entire concept of justice had taken a huge blow due to the actions of the world government. Dragon walked amidst the debris, his gaze sweeping across the devastated landscape. His mind raced with thoughts of the battle, of the lives lost, and of the unanswered questions that still lingered. Beside him, Kuzan approached, his expression grave as he surveyed the scene. "It's over," he remarked quietly, his voice barely audible over the din of destruction. Together, they began to assess the damage, searching for survivors amid the wreckage. The once proud fortress now lay in ruins, a stark reminder of the price of war. As they worked, they were joined by other Marines, their faces grim with determination. Despite the devastation, their resolve remained unshaken, and their commitment to justice remained unwavering. Among the ruins, they found survivors, battered and bruised but alive. Little children were among them, their faces paled with shock and exhaustion. Dragon approached them, offering a reassuring smile amidst the devastation. "We're here to help," he said gently, his voice a beacon of hope in the darkness. "You're safe now." With the help of the Marines, they were escorted to safety, away from the chaos of battle. As they departed, Dragon's gaze lingered on the ruins of Marineford, a solemn reminder of the fragility of peace. The next morning brought forth two pieces of news that reverberated throughout the world, each carrying its own weight of significance. Firstly, reports emerged of a clash between the Marines and the remnants of the Rocks pirates. Contrary to the Marines' expectations, the only notable figures present were Silver Axe, Captain John, and Akoku. The absence of powerhouses like Whitebeard and Big Mom puzzled the Marines as they surrounded the island, the designated meeting point. Despite the fierce clash that ensued, the pirates found themselves quickly overwhelmed due to the vast difference in strength between the two sides. However, just as victory seemed assured for the Marines, Golden Lion Shiki intervened at the last moment, turning the tide of battle. In the chaos that followed, Silver Axe met his demise, while Captain John and Akoku managed to slip away amidst the turmoil. Shiki, having caused enough havoc, retreated, leaving behind a scene of destruction and uncertainty. Meanwhile, the other piece of news that shook the world was the unexpected assault launched by the Blood Skull pirates on Marineford itself. Despite the vigilance of the Marine HQ's patrolling ships and defenses, the pirate fleet managed to sneak up on the stronghold, catching the Marines off guard. The ensuing clash wrought havoc upon Marineford, with parts of the stronghold suffering significant damage. Fortunately, the presence of Marine hero Garp's entire squad proved to be a stroke of luck, as they had decided to stay back in Marineford. Their presence became a pivotal factor in defending the HQ against the onslaught of the Blood Skull pirates, preventing even greater loss of life, especially among the Marine families who were targeted by the invaders. The assault on Marineford served as a stark reminder of the ever-present threat posed by the pirate factions, even to the heart of Marine power. In the hallowed halls of Mary Gosa, the five elders convened to discuss the recent debacle involving Cypher Paul. Elder Jew Peter's voice resonated with frustration as he rebuked the agents for their egregious oversight. How could Cypher Paul possibly overlook an entire division, especially one under the direct command of Garp himself? Such incompetence is unfathomable. His words echoed with a mix of disbelief and disdain, highlighting the severity of the situation. However, Elder J. Garcia saw an opportunity amidst the chaos. Perhaps this misstep can serve our interests. We can shift the blame onto the Marines, painting them as incompetent for allowing a direct assault on their headquarters. It could sow discord within their ranks and weaken their public image. But Elder Nusjuro, with a keen sense of intuition, voiced a more pressing concern. This cannot be dismissed as mere happenstance. It feels orchestrated, as if the plans were leaked from within. We must conduct a thorough investigation and purge any traitors from the ranks of Cypher Paul. Our secrets must remain hidden at all costs. Kong has been pressing for permission to depart for Marineford, Elder Peter announced, his tone reflective of the weight of their decision. It might be prudent to grant him leave. Keeping him detained here could arouse suspicions, especially given the length of his confinement. Elder J. Garcia, however, remained steadfast in his conviction. His understanding of our priorities is immaterial. The safety and secrecy of Mary Gosa must always take precedence. If Kong cannot grasp that, then perhaps his loyalty is not as unwavering as we had hoped. Meanwhile, as evening descended, Admiral Sengoku and his retinue returned to Marineford with urgency. Despite receiving constant updates from their subordinates, an undeniable sense of agitation gnawed at them. This feeling was particularly pronounced among the Marines, who knew their families resided within the confines of Marineford town, where the damage was reported to be most severe. Initial estimates painted a grim picture. Close to 6,000 pirates had brazenly descended upon the shores of Marineford, launching a brazen assault that caught the Marines off guard. The toll on the Marine side was staggering, with casualties nearing 800 in the initial count. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on Sengoku and his comrades as they grappled with the enormity of the loss and the implications it held for the future. As the lead Marine warship closed in on the shores of Marineford, several figures propelled themselves into the air using Jeppo, swiftly making their way towards the Marine HQ. Among them, Admiral Zephyr bore a grim countenance, his thoughts consumed by the safety of his family. Though he held the rank of Admiral, Zephyr's principles dictated that all lives were precious, and he had never taken a life in the line of duty. Today, however, his resolve wavered as he grappled with the knowledge that a pirate he had spared in the past had now endangered his loved ones. If not for Dragon's presence, he dreaded to imagine the outcome. Upon reaching the makeshift infirmary, where the injured were being tended to, Zephyr's heart raced as he searched for his family among the throngs of wounded. Finally, he spotted them, his wife and child, safe but exhausted, and his adopted son Virgo, grievously injured and tightly bound in bandages. His wife recounted the harrowing events of the attack, detailing Virgo's selfless sacrifice to protect them. Anger clenched Zephyr's fists, his knuckles cracking under the strain. Yet, as his gaze fell upon Virgo, his fury gave way to admiration and gratitude. He never imagined that a child he had only recently welcomed into his family would display such courage and devotion. After comforting his loved ones, Zephyr stepped outside, only to be met with a commotion. Rear Admiral Dragon, these are orders from the world government, declared a masked figure from the Cypher Paul organization, devoid of emotion. They question the competency of the Marines under the current circumstances. You are to hand over all captured traitors, and our CP organization will assume control of the investigation. Zephyr's jaw clenched at the implication of betrayal within their ranks. Yet, beneath his steely exterior, a storm brewed, fueled by determination to protect not only his family but also the honor of the Marines. Zephyr locked eyes with Garp, sensing the tempest brewing within the Marine hero's gaze. Both men bristled with restrained fury, yearning to unleash their wrath upon the Cypher Paul agents before them. Yet, a commanding voice from within the CP entourage caused them to hesitate, their fists tightening but held back by the weight of authority. Garp, stand down, the voice commanded, cutting through the tension like a knife. The orders from the elders are clear. It was Kong who stepped forward, his presence commanding attention and respect. Despite the turmoil roiling within him, he understood the precariousness of the situation. To allow Garp's unchecked rage to clash with the Cypher Paul agents would only invite disaster. Dragon, hand over all the prisoners, including any Marines implicated in collusion with the pirates, Kong continued, his tone firm yet tinged with regret. And in recognition of your role in eliminating Darius, the elders have deemed you worthy of promotion to the rank of Vice Admiral. I found myself caught in the midst of the unfolding chaos, a silent spectator to the spectacle playing out before me. Beside me stood Kuzan, his expression dark and brooding, mirroring the tumultuous thoughts swirling within me. The tension between us had been palpable earlier when I sought to employ my old-world methods of interrogation on the colluding Marines without authorization. Kuzan's intervention had halted my actions, nearly sparking a confrontation that Dragon had thankfully diffused by taking the prisoners into his custody. Now, as the Cypher Paul agents prepared to seize control of the investigation, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of frustration at the missed opportunity to extract vital information. Tisk, if only you had allowed me to proceed, Kuzan-san, I murmured under my breath, unable to contain the simmering resentment towards my senior for obstructing my efforts to uncover the truth, regardless of the consequences. Kuzan's gaze remained fixed ahead, his silence a testament to the lingering tension between us. Though I understood his objections to resorting to torture, the urgency of the situation demanded swift and decisive action. As expected, the Marines were forced to step back, and Garp, unable to bear any more humiliation, stormed out in a fit of frustration. Kuzan and I followed in his wake, tracing his path to where the decommissioned warships lay abandoned. Approaching the area, we witnessed a scene of raw fury. Garp, in a display of sheer strength, unleashed his pent-up frustration upon the hapless warships. With each resounding boom of his fists against the metal-plated hulls, the ships groaned and shuddered under the onslaught. He eschewed the use of haki, relying solely on the force of his bare fists to dent and deform the once mighty vessels. Each punch left a deep mark, a physical manifestation of Garp's anguish and rage. One could almost feel the weight of his emotions with every blow he landed, a testament to the depth of his sorrow and the magnitude of his loss. As we watched in solemn silence, it became clear that for Garp, the warships bore the brunt of his frustrations, serving as a tangible outlet for the turmoil raging within him. As Garp noticed our arrival, he made an effort to rein in his anger. Yet, when his gaze fell upon me, I sensed a hint of gratitude in his eyes. Earlier, when I had shared my concerns, only Dragon supported the possibility I raised. Garp, unaware that my confidence stemmed from knowledge acquired in another life, initially dismissed my concerns. However, after a lengthy discussion, he relented, choosing to leave his entire squad behind in Marineford based on a hunch. You should have tried to convince me harder. Maybe I would have stayed back. Garp's voice was tinged with guilt and sorrow. It wouldn't have worked, Garp-sensei, I replied earnestly. Everyone would have known that the Marine hero was still within Marineford, and they would not have dared to carry out their plan. Your own Marines would have blown the whistle to alert the enemies. Chapter 24. I knew that if Garp had stayed back, the Cypher Paul would have surely intervened to prevent the attack. Perhaps they would have devised an alternative plan to undermine Zephyr's prestige. As I mentioned the collusion between Marines and pirates, I witnessed a flicker of shame in Garp's eyes. A man known for his unwavering resolve in the face of adversity couldn't help but sag in shame at the thought of how far the Marines had fallen. "Ross, that's enough. This is not the time," Cusin interjected firmly, redirecting the conversation. "We need to address your recent behavior first." Garp, frustration etched on his features, turned to us with a questioning gaze, seeking an explanation. Cusin began to outline my recent actions, but I remained silent. I refused to deny who I was or compromise my principles, even in the face of scrutiny. "Ross, I hope you have a good explanation for why you killed a fellow Marine," Garp questioned, disapproval evident in his tone. "Tell me, Garp-sensei, do you still consider them Marines?" I retorted, a hint of defiance coloring my words. "Why don't you go and tell the 800 families who lost loved ones that their deaths were at the hands of fellow Marines? Dying for a cause is one thing, but being betrayed is another. The moment they turned on their comrades, they forfeited their humanity. All I did was rid the world of vermin, and if I have to do it again, I won't lose a moment's sleep over it." My words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the harsh realities of war and betrayal. Garp's expression softened slightly, perhaps begrudgingly acknowledging the validity of my stance, even if he couldn't fully condone my actions. "Perhaps Cusin-san isn't fully aware of the truth yet, but you, Garp-san, should know better," I asserted, taking a step forward. With resolve in my heart, I began my own training regimen, unleashing blows upon another battered warship, leaving Garp and Cusin to ponder my words in silence. Days passed, and Virgo made a full recovery from his injuries. Under Kong's orders, Marineford's defenses underwent a complete restructuring. Determined to prevent a recurrence of the recent tragedy, Kong orchestrated a massive overhaul despite the world government's reluctance to allocate sufficient funds. Through resourcefulness and determination, Kong managed to redirect funds, ensuring the extensive modifications to Marineford were carried out swiftly and effectively. After ensuring that Marineford was back on track, Garp felt the pull of the open sea, yearning to hunt pirates to soothe his restless heart. He made the decision to depart from Marineford, leaving behind Cusin to pursue enrollment in the elite academy and graduate alongside the finest Marines. Though Zephyr extended the offer for me to join the elite academy as well, a privilege rarely granted at such a young age, I declined, opting instead to remain under Garp's mentorship. Meanwhile, Dragon, now promoted to Vice Admiral, received a new assignment. He was reassigned to lead his own Marine division and was stationed at the G5 Marine base in the New World, ready to face the challenges that awaited him in the treacherous seas. As for Virgo, under Zephyr's guidance, he joined the Marines to begin his journey from the ground up. With Zephyr's tutelage, Virgo would lay a solid foundation upon which he would eventually be admitted to the elite academy, poised to become one of the Marines' finest. As the Marine ship cruised through the turbulent waters of the New World, it had been more than 3 months since our return to these treacherous seas. Perched at the forefront of the vessel, I sat with an old violin nestled in my arms, the wood warmed by the glow of the setting sun. With a gentle sway of the ship, I drew the bow across the strings, summoning forth the familiar tune of Bink's Sake, which I had recently mastered after receiving the said score from a pirate group that we destroyed. The melody carried a bittersweet echo, reflecting the passage of time and the trials we had faced since our return to these turbulent waters. "Why is the kid playing a pirate song on a Marine ship?" one of the newly joined Marine soldiers couldn't help but inquire. Garp had assigned some of his veteran soldiers to Dragon's division with Kong's assistance, aiming to provide support for his new posting. As I often avoided wearing my uniform, many of the newcomers knew me simply as a kid under Garp's training, unaware of my lieutenant rank. "SHHHH, music has no language, no boundaries and no barriers," Bogard, leaning against the main mast, interjected. "It transcends all borders and brings the whole world together. So what if it's a song favored by pirates? Just enjoy it." I remained focused on the music, tuning out the comments and immersing myself in the melody. I hadn't slacked on my training for even a day, and with each passing day, I could feel myself growing stronger. I had reached a decent level of control using the voice of all things, and through repeated high-intensity battles, I had gained a rudimentary grasp of a mission. I understood that frequent battles, especially those teetering on the brink of life and death, were the most effective way to hone my haki skills. As for Kaititsu, I noticed a gradual transformation occurring within the blade. With each infusion of haki, the Sandai Kaititsu took on a darker shade, inching closer to becoming a black blade. Perhaps the blade had already been honed by previous users, and my haki was accelerating its transformation. Even Bogard was taken aback when he witnessed Kaititsu turning into a black blade. Despite years of nurturing his own blade, it had yet to darken. I considered myself fortunate to wield such a high-grade blade. With each drop of blood shed in battle, the bond between Kaititsu and me grew stronger, solidifying our connection and enhancing its power. As I was engrossed in my music, I was interrupted by an intriguing message from the shoal of fish. A smirk tugged at my lips as I realized that dumb pirates were targeting the warship with Garp aboard. Curiosity piqued, I wondered who could be foolish enough to attempt such a feat. The pirate ship utilized the cover provided by the treacherous climate of the New World seas to catch us off guard. Perhaps our recent loss of the ship's figurehead in battle had emboldened them to target us. With a calm demeanor, I rose to my feet and utilized my observation haki to probe the incoming danger. Bogard, noticing my actions, approached me, eager to understand the situation. Bogard-san, pirates are approaching from our rear. There are 3 ships incoming, but they are currently out of my observation range, I explained to Bogard, who swiftly relayed the information and commands, including notifying Garp, who was resting within the ship. Bogard didn't question the authenticity of my information. Maybe he was already aware of some of my secrets because he was Garp's most trusted confidant, and my range of observation haki had long surpassed his. The only person who could surpass my range on this ship was Garp himself. Bogard ordered the ship's navigator to turn in the direction of the nearest island. Fighting with solid ground under our feet seemed like a better option than battling on turbulent seas, especially in the unpredictable waters of the New World. A minute or two later, Garp emerged on deck, fully adorned in his marine attire, a commanding presence that needed no words to convey urgency. 3 pirate ships are quickly approaching our position. It feels like someone who can surpass my range of observation. I'm pretty sure they have a decent bounty, I relayed to Garp, still attempting to extend my range of observation to glean more information. Sensing Garp's swift retraction of his aura to its maximum, I marveled at his expertise in concealing himself from observation haki. While I couldn't detect him solely through observation, his vitality shone brightly when I tapped into the voice of all things. Kid, unleash your haki to the maximum. Let them believe you're the strongest fighter aboard. Increase the ship's speed to the maximum, make them think we're attempting to flee, Garp commanded, shedding his marine coat and rolling up his sleeves in preparation for the impending battle. The entire ship buzzed with activity as we awaited the arrival of the 3 pirate ships. It took another 10 minutes for them to come within visual range, their Jolly Roger flags waving ominously in the wind. When I recognized the emblem, a laugh escaped my lips involuntarily. It was the Beast Pirates. There, amidst their ranks, I could already discern the imposing figure of a young Kaido, swinging his club aggressively as if to threaten the very integrity of our marine vessel. Kaido held a special place in my mind. Perhaps it was petty, but from my canon knowledge, I understood that while he was in an alliance with Doflamingo, it was more akin to Doflamingo being subservient due to the vast difference in their strength. Kaido was someone I aspired to surpass in the future, though with my current abilities, the user of the mythical dragon fruit was undoubtedly out of my league. However, for Garp, the current Kaido posed no challenge at all. Kaido had a history of targeting Marines multiple times for plundering, but it seemed he had chosen the wrong target this time. The current Kaido had yet to set his sights on Wano country. As our marine ship approached a large inhabited island, the Beast Pirates closed in within cannon range. Sensing their confidence, Garp ordered the Marines to fire the cannons haphazardly, creating chaos and confusion among the pirates who believed they had the upper hand, pushing us toward the island's shores with aggressive maneuvers. Boom! 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 The thunderous roar of cannon shots closed off the retreat routes of the marine ship. Quickly disembarking, the Marines hastened toward the island, followed closely by the Beast Pirates, who ensured there was no avenue of escape for their quarry. Ha 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 ha, you pathetic Marines! Quite the runners you all are. I originally only wanted to plunder everything you guys were worth, but then you made me chase all of you for so long. So, I've decided to send you all to hell, Kaido bellowed, his imposing form radiating Conqueror's haki to incapacitate as many Marines as possible. I seized the opportunity to hone my own Conqueror's haki, releasing it with all my might. Lightning surged from both sides. Kaido's House Hoku manifested as purple lightning, while mine crackled with pitch-black energy tinged with gold. The initial clash highlighted the disparity between our abilities, yet I held my ground. Curiously, Kaido observed me as if I were some sort of treasure. Ha ha ha, kid, you're quite interesting. Such control of House Hoku at such a tender age. Join me, and I'll spare your life. If not, I'll bury you here with the rest of the Marines, Kaido challenged, releasing his conqueror's haki with full intensity in an attempt to intimidate me. Undeterred, I gritted my teeth and summoned my willpower. Though Kaido's conqueror's haki was overwhelming, I refused to back down. Just when it seemed I might falter, a surge of conqueror's haki erupted from the Marine's side, overpowering Kaido and forcing him to his knees. "Who's there? Come out, you coward!" Kaido roared in anger, seeking the source of his disadvantage. Clank, clank, clank. The clash of lightning produced an eerie noise as the Marines parted like the tide, revealing Garp walking majestically forward, closely followed by Bogard. With each step, Garp exerted pressure on Kaido, causing him to sink lower into the ground. Garp. Kaido and the remaining beast pirates stood in disbelief, realizing their grave mistake. With most of their crew incapacitated, they couldn't make a swift retreat. "Kaido, brat, it seems I should have dealt with you back in God Valley. You've become quite the menace in recent years," Garp declared nonchalantly, advancing toward Kaido with measured steps, his gaze briefly pausing on a sweating teen with black wings behind his back, struggling to withstand the force of Garp's conqueror's haki. Chapter 25. Clang. Garp effortlessly caught the haki-clad club with his own haki-coated arm, leaving Kaido bewildered. However, in a split second, Kaido shifted to his hybrid form and unleashed a full-powered energy beam, Burrow Blast, at close range. A massive detonation ensued, shrouding the area in dust and smoke. "Ha ha ha ha, Garp, you've grown too rusty to fall for such an attack. I am a dragon that soars the sky, destined to become the king of this world," Kaido boasted, flexing despite the uncertainty of Garp's status. Observing the situation with my observation haki, I knew Kaido wouldn't be so relaxed if he were concentrating on his own observation. Boom! Garp's fist, coated in hardening, and Conqueror's haki slammed into Kaido's chest. Had Garp released the club, Kaido would have been launched back hundreds of meters. From the shockwave, I could estimate the tremendous force behind the punch. Kaido spat out blood as Garp's attack caused internal damage, proving haki's supremacy regardless of Devil Fruit's abilities. "Remember this lesson well, Kaido brat. Regardless of your Devil Fruit, haki always reigns supreme," Garp declared, rushing forward and relinquishing Kaido's club. Anticipating the threat with his observation haki, Kaido hardened his entire body with Busos Hoku, Koka. Meteorite. Garp's blazing fist struck Kaido's chest, leaving a visible dent on the haki-clad hybrid form. Realizing Garp's superiority, Kaido attempted to transform into a full-fledged dragon and take to the air. However, Garp, a veteran of aerial battles against the likes of Shiki, effortlessly intercepted Kaido's attempt. With 3 Jeppo steps, Garp closed the distance and unleashed a ferocious downward punch. Since the attack on Marineford, Garp has yet to vent his frustration properly, having failed to confront powerhouses like Roger, Whitebeard, and Shiki in the New World. When Garp saw Kaido targeting his own ship, he resolved to impart a lesson Kaido would never forget. Blue hole. The impact sent Kaido crashing towards the hill in the center of the island. Garp wasted no time, immediately pursuing the fallen dragon. As Garp and Kaido made their way toward the island's center, the remaining Marines and pirates, still standing after the Conqueror's haki onslaught, prepared to confront each other. With Kaititsu drawn, I awaited Bogard's command to launch the attack on the remaining pirates. My target was already chosen, King, the future king of conflagration and an all-star of the beast pirates. Bogard simply waved his hand, signaling the remaining Marines to descend upon the pirates like a tide. "Bogard-san, please allow me to face that man." I directed my request towards Bogard, indicating King, who was attempting to collect himself from Garp's Conqueror's haki pressure. After observing King briefly, Bogard nodded at me, granting consent to confront my chosen enemy. My primary reason for seeking Bogard's approval was to ensure that the Rear Admiral wouldn't interfere once the fight began. I closely scrutinized my target. King stood as a towering figure, boasting a well-muscled, broad-shouldered frame and long limbs. As a Lunarian, he bore the distinctive features of his race, large, black feathered wings sprouting from his back, extending down to knee length, a brown complexion, and silver-white hair. His hair was shaved on the sides but left long on top, mostly drawn back and bound at King's occiput before cascading freely down past his nape. Several side locks hung on the right side of King's face, reaching his collarbone, including a thin braid. "Soru." I flickered at lightning-fast speed towards King, who stood ready to face the incoming Marines. Sensing my threat, he quickly kicked out with his long limbs. However, with my high mastery of observation, King's attack was easy to detect, and I dodged it swiftly, swinging Kaititsuo at him. Clang! King drew his own sword to deflect my attack. As our blades clashed, sparks flew in all directions, illuminating the battlefield with flashes of light. King's swordsmanship was formidable, each of his strikes was delivered with precision and power. I parried his blows with Kaititsu, feeling the force behind each impact reverberate through my arms. With a swift twist of his wrist, King aimed a diagonal slash towards my midsection, but I anticipated his move and sidestepped just in time. Seizing the opportunity, I countered with a rapid series of strikes, aiming for the gaps in his defense. However, King was no easy opponent, he expertly parried each blow, and his movements were fluid and calculated. The clash of our swords echoed across the island as we danced in a deadly dance of steel. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, heightening my senses and sharpening my focus. Every move I made was calculated, and every strike was aimed with precision. King's attacks grew more aggressive, his strikes coming faster and with greater force. I responded in kind, matching his intensity with my own ferocity. We traded blows with blistering speed, each strike threatening to land a fatal blow. But amidst the chaos of battle, I remained calm and focused. With a sudden burst of speed, I launched myself into the air, somersaulting over King's head and landing behind him in a fluid motion. Before he could react, I lunged forward, driving Kaititsuo towards his back with all my strength, completely cladding my blade with haki. However, just before my blade could pierce through, I sensed a sudden threat and swiftly retreated a dozen meters. There, I saw a large mass of flames engulfing King's back, a trait of his Lunarian heritage. "TCH, you're lucky to have detected my flames," King remarked as he turned to face me once more. "Ha ha ha, you think I'd fall for such a trick, Albert?" I replied confidently, sensing my upper hand in the battle. From my estimation, King had only recently joined Kaido's ranks. My words seemed to shock King, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Who are you? How do you know my name? Are you with the world government?" He questioned with a threatening tone, but I ignored his queries, intentionally using his name to unsettle him. "Albert, oh Albert, you rushed into joining Kaido. You could have chosen better," I taunted, further provoking his anger. "What do you know, kid? Kaido-sama will become the king of this world and bring down the world government," King retorted, his hatred for the world government evident. "I may be a kid, but I know Kaido will never ascend the throne. At best, he'll be an infamous pirate in the New World, and you, his right-hand man, Kaido, really wasted a mythical Zoan fruit by consuming it." I mocked, further infuriating King. It was also because Kaido's devil fruit was something I would have consumed if I had gotten it, but now it was too late. A gunshot suddenly echoed across the battlefield, but I swiftly swung my Kaititsu, cleanly slicing the sea stone bullet in half. I had detected another assailant targeting me, whom I recognized as Queen, a former Mads member and future all-star of the Beast Pirates. Aware that the sea stone bullet held a sinister secret, I remained vigilant. Before Queen could launch another attack, Bogard intervened, moving swiftly toward him with a drawn blade, ensuring no interference in our confrontation. As Bogard engaged Queen, I refocused my attention on King, readying myself for the impending clash. With a determined expression, King unleashed the full power of his devil fruit, transforming into a formidable pteranodon and taking to the skies. Hovering above me, King let out a deafening screech, his wings beating against the air with powerful strokes. I watched as he descended upon me, his sharp talons poised to strike with deadly precision. With a swift motion, I raised Kaititsu to parry King's attack, the clash of blade and claw ringing out across the battlefield. As we locked in combat, I could feel the heat radiating from his flaming wings, intensifying the tension of our confrontation. King's aerial maneuvers were swift and unpredictable, his agility in the air making it difficult for me to land a decisive blow. But I remained vigilant, analyzing his movements and searching for an opportunity to gain the upper hand. With each exchange, sparks flew as our weapons clashed, the intensity of our duel escalating with every passing moment. Despite King's ferocious assault, I refused to back down, determined to stand my ground and emerge victorious. As the battle raged on, I focused on exploiting any weaknesses in King's defense, probing for openings to deliver a decisive strike. With every movement, I remained agile and alert, ready to counter any attack with precision and skill. In his pteranodon form, King unleashed a barrage of fire projectiles aimed at burying me beneath a series of explosions. With swift precision, I deflected each incoming flaming projectile with my sword, refusing to yield to his relentless assault. As the air crackled with fiery chaos, I swiftly assumed a sword draw stance, channeling armament haki to imbue my blade with added strength. With a resolute swing, I unleashed a flying slash towards King, slicing through the incoming projectiles and connecting with his airborne form. A deafening screech echoed through the battlefield as my attack left a deep gash on King's side, despite his attempt to defend himself with haki. Enraged by the blow, King prepared to retaliate, but I refused to give him the chance. Utilizing the advanced techniques of Jeppo and Soru, I moved with unparalleled speed, darting towards the towering form of King with lightning-fast agility. With a decisive downward slice, I brought Kaititsu crashing down upon him, the force of the blow sending his massive form hurtling towards the ground below. As King's colossal body collided with the earth, a cloud of dust and debris engulfed the area, its impact reverberating through the battlefield. With King momentarily subdued, I stood ready, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead in our fierce battle. After landing a few meters away from where King had crashed, I flicked away the bloodstain on my blade and kept my gaze fixed on the crater where King had landed. Amidst the swirling dust and smoke, I observed as King emerged, his human form bearing a large wound on his shoulder, almost severing one of his arms. Despite his injuries, he stepped forward to face me once again, his determination unwavering. "Kid, you sure are quite strong. I did not know the Marines were hiding such a monster. Tell me, what kind of glorious story did the Marines use to make you the world government's lapdog?" "Yes, kid, you heard me right. That's all you are, the world government's dog," King remarked, despite his pain, maintaining a smirk on his face with a teasing smile. "Is that supposed to irk me?" "Ha ha ha ha, King, you sure are naive. You are the last living relic of a now fallen race, and you still have the time to tease me, a child who you couldn't beat in single combat," I retorted, not falling for his words. I had never considered myself a Marine, so no matter how much he tried to insult me, it was not going to work. "Kid, this is just a scratch. Don't think you have won. As long as Kaido-sama is here, the Marines can do nothing to us," King boasted about Kaido. Right when he wanted to continue, a strong boom resounded, shaking the entire island to its core. Galaxy impact. Garp launched his most powerful blow towards Kaido, who was crushed beneath the attack with no chance of resistance. "Ha ha ha, Albert, is that the man you think will ascend the throne in the future? He is only alive because of his devil fruit. He never had the resolve or determination needed to conquer the world." I couldn't help but shake my head in disappointment. I coated my blade again with haki to restart the fight with King. My observation haki already detected that the huge island was slowly sinking from Garp's last blow. With a few more attacks of such intensity and power, the island would be buried beneath. Chapter 26. As Kaido's colossal dragon form crashed into the earth, the impact created a seismic shockwave that reverberated through the island, leaving a massive crater in its wake. Garp approached the fallen beast, his expression a mix of disdain and disappointment. "Is this all you can muster, Kaido?" Garp's voice boomed, echoing across the desolate landscape. "You've barely grown since the days at God Valley, despite consuming that mythical Zoan fruit of yours." Kaido struggled to rise from the debris, his once majestic form now marred by wounds inflicted by Garp's relentless assault. Blood trickled from his scales, staining the ground beneath him, but the indomitable spirit of the beast pirate refused to yield. "You talk too much, Garp," Kaido growled, his voice dripping with defiance. "I am the strongest creature in the world. No one, not even you, can defeat me." With a defiant roar, Kaido unleashed a torrent of azure flames from his jaws, aiming to engulf Garp in a searing inferno. But the marine legend stood unfazed, his body enveloped in a cloak of Buso's Hoku haki that repelled the flames with ease. Without another word, Kaido lunged forward, his massive maw poised to strike. But Garp was ready, his reflexes had been honed through decades of battle. With lightning speed, he sidestepped the blow, delivering a punishing punch to Kaido's midsection. The impact reverberated through the air, sending shockwaves rippling across the battlefield. Kaido was shot backward, momentarily stunned by the force of Garp's attack. "You call yourself the strongest? Pathetic." Garp's voice was a thunderous roar as he unleashed a barrage of punches, each one landing with the force of a sledgehammer. Kaido struggled to defend himself, his arms straining under the relentless assault. But Garp showed no mercy, pressing his advantage with unmatched ferocity. He unleashed a flurry of devastating blows, each one driving Kaido further and further back. Sudden. As Kaido reverted to his fearsome hybrid form, his towering figure loomed over Garp with primal fury. With a thunderous roar, he launched himself at the marine hero, his fists wreathed in crackling energy. But Garp was ready, his fists meeting Kaido's with bone-shattering force. Each blow reverberated through the air, creating shockwaves that sent debris flying in all directions. The clash echoed across the island, a symphony of destruction that bore witness to their ferocious battle. Despite Kaido's relentless effort, Garp punished him blow after blow, his blows landing with precision and devastating impact. With each strike, he pushed Kaido back, completely dominating the strongest creature in the world, giving Kaido no chance to retaliate. The battle on the island between Garp and Kaido had been raging for 6 grueling hours. Despite Kaido's monstrous physique, enhanced by his mythical Zoan fruit, he found himself unable to mount any significant retaliation against Garp's relentless assault. The marine legend, fueled by years of pent-up frustration, unleashed his full fury upon the self-proclaimed strongest creature in the world. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, my own confrontation with King had reached a decisive conclusion hours prior. With Kaititsu poised to deliver the final blow, Bogard intervened, subduing the Lunarian with sea stone shackles. Queen, likewise, had been defeated by Bogard, but he managed to slip away amidst the chaos, escaping with a handful of his crewmates who had regained consciousness. As the dust settled on our respective battles, I turned my attention to Garp and Kaido's ongoing clash. Despite Kaido's resilience, I could see the toll that Garp's relentless assault had taken on him. With each passing moment, it became increasingly evident that Garp would emerge victorious. The island itself bore witness to the ferocity of their struggle. Cracks formed in the earth, trees splintered under the force of their blows, and the very air crackled with electricity as their haki clashed. Suddenly, Kaido's eyes flashed with fury as he summoned the full power of his devil fruit. Flames erupted from his body, enveloping him in a fiery aura as he unleashed his strongest form, a fiery dragon. He launched his most fearsome attack. But Garp was undaunted, despite the scorching temperature that would have melted any normal human to the bone. With a roar of his own, he countered with his legendary technique, Blue Hole. His fist crackled with electricity as he delivered a devastating blow, shattering Kaido's flames and sending him reeling. You think you can defeat me with such pathetic strength? Think again, Kaido. Garp's voice boomed across the battlefield, his eyes burning with determination. Enraged, Kaido rose into the air with his fearsome flaming dragon form, his massive figure casting a shadow over the battlefield. With a deafening roar, he unleashed another barrage of flames, intent on incinerating his opponent and the entire island beneath him. But Garp was ready. With a swift motion, he unleashed his own signature attack, Galaxy Impact. His fist glowed with a brilliant light as he charged forward, his attack cutting through Kaido's flames like a hot knife through butter. The two titans clashed in a spectacular display of power and skill, their attacks colliding in a dazzling explosion of energy. With each blow, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and the air crackled with electricity and fire. And then, with a final, bone-shattering impact, Garp delivered the decisive blow. His fist, coated with both armament and Conqueror's haki, connected with Kaido's flaming dragon form, sending shockwaves rippling through the air as the future Emperor of the Sea was sent crashing to the ground, defeated at last by the indomitable marine hero. As Kaido's massive dragon form crashed onto the center of the island one last time, I could detect the subtle seismic shift due to Garp's final attack, and I quickly turned towards Bogard. Bogard-san, we should evacuate the island. The whole island is sinking. We only have a few minutes before it vanishes, I said, surprised that the island had held out for so long. I had expected it to sink much earlier, but it had endured until the end of the battle. Bogard swiftly ordered the Marines to evacuate, while all the pirates had already been secured on the ship. Within minutes, the entire Marine force was back on the ship, eagerly awaiting Garp's return. We had captured 2 of the Beast Pirates' ships. We only had to wait a couple of minutes when I saw Garp using Jeppo to traverse through the air. Our Marine ship was already a few hundred meters away from the sinking island, and Garp was now carrying the battered and broken unconscious Kaido like a dead dog. Thud. Garp unceremoniously threw the massive Kaido onto the warship's deck and landed next to us. As Garp stood beside the unconscious form of Kaido, his expression was unreadable, his eyes were clouded with a mixture of weariness and determination. I stepped forward, the weight of the situation heavy on my shoulders. What should we do with him, Garp-san? I asked, my voice tinged with urgency. He's too dangerous to keep alive. We should end this now before he escapes again. Garp's gaze flickered towards me, his brow furrowing slightly. "Shackle him in sea stone cuffs and use additional sea stone restraints," he commanded, his voice firm. "Bogard, get in touch with HQ and share the information." Bogard nodded, reaching for a transponder snail to relay the message. As he conversed with headquarters, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at me. This was my chance to rid the world of Kaido's tyranny once and for all. Or rather, I should say I wanted to try my luck if I could get the Uo no Mi model, Siryu, once the fruit returns to the sea after Kaido's death. "Garp-san, we should consider," I began, my voice trailing off as I gathered my courage. "We should consider ending him now. You're one of the few who could execute him." Garp's gaze snapped to mine, his eyes flashing with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. "No," he stated firmly, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "He'll be sent to impel down." Disappointment washed over me like a wave crashing against the shore. "But Garp-san," I insisted, desperation creeping into my tone. "Sparing him will only lead to more bloodshed. How many more Marines will have to die before you realize that killing him is the only solution?" Garp's jaw clenched, his resolve unwavering. "Killing isn't always the answer," he replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "But what about the future?" I pressed, frustration bubbling within me. "He's escaped capture countless times before. Even among Marines, only you have strong enough haki mastery to end him. We should do it now, before it's too late." Anger flared in Garp's eyes, his voice rising with intensity. I said no. He shouted, his words echoing across the deck. "Killing him won't solve anything. We'll send him to impel down, where he belongs." I recoiled at the force of his response, feeling a pang of regret for challenging him. But as Garp turned away, his gaze fixed on the horizon, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a grave mistake. And so, I didn't bother to push the matter any further. I knew I didn't possess the strength to kill even the fallen Kaido currently. After consuming the mythical Zoan fruit of the dragon, his already formidable body had been upgraded to a near-immortal level. Only someone with the highest level of haki could possibly deal a fatal blow, even to his base form. With my voice of all things, I could detect the monstrous rate at which his body was recovering. The combination of the mythical Zoan fruit and Kaido's natural physique was truly phenomenal. Even my own recovery abilities paled in comparison to what I was currently witnessing in Kaido's body. At the current rate, he should be able to completely regain his fighting strength in 2 to 3 days. With Garp's command, Kaido, the future emperor, was bound in sea stone shackles, and his body was wrapped with sea stone chains as an extra precaution. Dawn was already breaking when the fight ended, and in the next few minutes, the entire island had sunk, leaving no trace of its presence. "Garp-san, HQ has asked us to wait. They are sending a marine fleet to escort Kaido to impel down. We have been ordered to move in the direction of G9 base," Bogard relayed the information he received from Fleet Admiral Kong himself. I pondered over how much importance the world nobles gave to a user of the mythical dragon fruit. I guessed it was not their top priority if such a fruit was offered as a trophy during the native hunting competition. Garp simply nodded, still somewhat occupied due to my earlier words. Bogard quickly passed down orders to return to G9 Marine Base to hand over the prisoner. It was late in the evening when we encountered the large marine fleet, consisting of 10 ships. Among them was a great battleship serving as its flagship, accompanied by 3 large warships and the remaining ships being standard-sized marine battleships. Despite Garp's status as a vice-admiral, equivalent to that of an admiral, he chose a large-sized warship that suited his needs over a super-large-sized great battleship. Using my observation haki, I discerned the strength of the incoming fleet, detecting several strong presences. By my estimation, there were about 3 vice-admiral level figures among them. As the flagship came to a halt near our ship, a few figures jumped up to Garp's ship. Garp, standing leisurely on the deck, awaited the arrival of the other party. He also detected some unsavory presences among the Marines' fleet, including several CP agents garbed in crisp black suits alongside the standard Marines. "Garp-san, here are the papers for prisoner transfer. We will take it over from here," one of the Marine vice-admirals, whom I was not very familiar with, passed a document to Garp. Bogard, despite the vice-admiral's disapproving look, picked it up and. Chapter 27. Garp-san, the order states that we are to hand over the prisoners and continue with our patrol mission in the New World, Bogard relayed the order they had received. "Garp-san, the prisoners?" the vice-admiral questioned in an authoritative tone. Using my voice of all things, I was able to collect quite a few interesting details. As I honed my observation haki, I unlocked more and more of its unique characteristics. Recently, I had started to read people's thoughts unless they had a strong enough will to resist. This power of mine was similar to Patrick Redfield's and Queen Otohim's from Fishman Island. I understood that everyone in the prisoner escort fleet belonged to the world government faction. They didn't want Garp to receive credit for the capture of Kaido, and they also had a nefarious plan of letting Kaido go and blaming the Marines again for incompetence. I couldn't understand why the world government was planning such a scheme. Maybe they thought that after the recent fiasco with the Marines, they would need quite a few strong pirates to stir trouble in the New World, and Kaido was a prime candidate. They couldn't afford to have such a pirate locked down in Impel Down. It wasn't that the world government lacked the power to deal with Kaido, it was simply because they didn't care. After taking down Rox D. Zebek, the power balance had shifted in favor of the Marines, and the world government didn't want the Marines' prestige to grow significantly. Kaido is my prisoner. I will be part of the escort until he is safely deposited into Impel Down, Garp declared, showing no regard for the sheet of paper that Bogard had now returned to the vice admiral who led the fleet. Garp-san, these are orders from HQ. Are you going to disobey them? Or are you implying that my fleet is incapable of transporting a prisoner who is already bound in chains? The vice admiral fumed inwardly at the marine hero's attitude. They were of the same rank, but he knew he couldn't challenge the man in front of him due to prestige, so he attempted to strong-arm Garp using the name of HQ's order. Do I look like I care? I did not ask for reinforcements, and I informed HQ for protocol's sake. I alone am capable of escorting my prisoner to Impel Down, Garp retorted adamantly, making his stance clear to everyone present. Just then, a man clad in a black suit stepped forward and handed a transponder snail to Garp. Garp, are you disobeying my orders? The order is clear, transfer the prisoner over to the prisoner fleet, and I have sent you the latest intel regarding the whereabouts of Roger. Go and do your duty, Fleet Admiral Kong's voice echoed from the other side of the transponder. By the way, I saw the expression on the transponder snail, he seemed quite frustrated. Kong-san, this? Kaido has already escaped from similar situations multiple times. It's better that I accompany them to Impel Down to make sure there are no accidents, Garp argued, though he still maintained a level of respect for Kong. I couldn't help but snicker from the side regarding Garp's situation, as I had expected something similar to happen. Garp turned to glare at me, promising severe punishment later, but I simply shrugged it off. The scene was really funny for me, seeing how powerless the Marines appeared. No excuses, Garp. You are a vice admiral, so follow my orders. If you want to challenge my authority and overrule my order, you should at least be an admiral. Tell me, are you willing to accept the promotion? If not, just follow my orders, Kong barked, his irritation palpable. The vice admiral and the CP agents' faces contorted with displeasure as Kong offered Garp the option to accept the promotion, knowing full well there was no chance Garp would agree. Garp found himself caught in a dilemma, but ultimately he relented. He knew that there was only so much he could do with his current status as vice admiral, but he would absolutely not agree to become a lackey and serve as an admiral at the beck and call of the world nobles. Bogard, have them transfer all the prisoners over to the prisoner fleet. And make sure to get it in writing that the transfer has been completed. Ensure all the documents are complete before the transfer. I do not want anyone blaming us if something untoward happens later, Garp instructed firmly, fully aware of the ulterior motives of the individuals who had arrived regarding Kaido. He was determined to wash his hands of the matter entirely. Garp-san, I am sure this is not really necessary. After all, we are all Marines. Don't you trust us? The Vice Admiral quickly wanted to intervene, fearing that if he agreed to what Garp suggested, the blame would fall squarely on his shoulders once Kaido escaped. While he was a supporter of the world government faction, he knew that if Garp took this action, he would become the scapegoat for letting such a dangerous prisoner escape. You can either sign the documents or you can directly explain to the Fleet Admiral why you are not following proper procedures and signing the necessary documents. I'm sure Kong-san heard everything I said, you can explain it to him, Garp stated firmly, passing the transponder snail over to the Vice Admiral, who hesitated before ordering his subordinates to complete the paperwork and transfer. However, the CP agent paid no heed to the Vice Admiral's predicament. His gaze searched for something on Garp's warship, and when his eyes fell on me, he stepped forward and pulled out a letter, presenting it to me with both arms as if I were some aristocrat. The elders wanted me to personally deliver this letter to you, he said, before returning to their warship. I was confused as to why the elders were sending me a letter. Though I was curious, I controlled myself and kept the letter in my marine coat, continuing to observe the prisoner transport. Garp eyed me curiously, but seeing that I hadn't opened the letter yet, he returned his attention to the prisoner transfer. It took nearly an hour to complete the procedure, meticulously orchestrated under Garp's watchful eye. Bogart ensured that every protocol was followed to the letter, leaving no room for error. Even the sea stone cuffs were replaced with those brought by the prisoner's ship, a precautionary measure to avoid any potential blame for faulty restraints. As the meticulous process unfolded, it became increasingly clear to everyone aboard Garp's ship that a political game was afoot, and the Vice Admiral's defeated expression spoke volumes about who emerged victorious. "I trust you'll safely escort the prisoner back to Impel Down. If not, be cautious, your heads might be on the chopping block." Bogart's taunt left a palpable chill in the air, a subtle reminder of the consequences awaiting any misstep. With the prisoners successfully transferred, Garp wasted no time. Armed with new intelligence regarding Roger's whereabouts, our ship swiftly set sail in pursuit of the elusive Roger pirates. As we sailed towards our new destination, I found myself perched in my usual spot on the warship's railing, engrossed in the letter addressed to me by the elders. Unlike most 10-year-olds who might have been easily swayed, I possessed a deeper understanding of the elders' true nature. While the world perceived them as the highest governing body, my dual existence and insights from the canon revealed otherwise. The world government's displayed strength was merely a facade. Few comprehended the true might wielded by each elder, let alone the hidden forces concealed from public knowledge. Perhaps only Imu grasped the full extent of the world government's true power. The letter held a tempting promise: reinstatement as a celestial dragon upon making significant contributions. It presented me with two paths: join the CP organization, where I anticipated they would attempt to indoctrinate me, or remain within the Marines as their lackey. They pledged ample resources to facilitate my ascent to the rank of Admiral, even dangling the coveted position of Fleet Admiral should I prove myself worthy. However, the timing of their offer left me pondering. Little had changed within Doflamingo's sphere of influence, and while our Don Quixote family flourished, it hardly warranted the elders' attention. It dawned on me that perhaps it was my potential and rapid growth that had captured their interest. Despite my tender age, my strength rivaled that of a top-class rear admiral, excluding outliers like Bogart. Perhaps my recent skirmish with King had showcased my prowess, leading Garp's new Marine soldiers, or rather spies, to relay word of my abilities to their superiors. A smirk played on my lips as I contemplated their intentions. They underestimated me, treating me as a mere child to be manipulated. Yet, I saw an opportunity to exploit their offer for personal gain. The wealth and resources of the world nobles were unmatched, and I would be a fool to reject such an opportunity. It would serve as recompense for my humiliation at Marie Joy's, a subtle reminder that even the mighty elders were not beyond my reach. As I pondered the myriad ways to exploit the elders' offer, my observation hacky alerted me to Garp's approach. He settled beside me on the railing, casting a glance at the letter in my hand but refraining from questioning me, despite his evident curiosity. I couldn't help but smile, downplaying the importance of the letter despite its significance. "Garp-san, it seems like quite a few roaches have boarded your ship under the guise of Marine soldiers. Transferring some veterans to Dragon-san has created quite an opening for these bugs," I remarked playfully, swinging my leg leisurely over the railing, relishing the cool sea breeze. Garp's expression shifted slightly at the mention of spies, and he turned to me with a questioning look. Without hesitation, I passed him the letter, as I harbored no reservations about sharing the elder's offer with him. Reluctant at first, Garp perused the contents of the letter, but soon a chuckle escaped him in amusement. Through our time together, Garp had come to understand the depth of my disdain for the world nobles, despite my birth into their ranks. Though I concealed my hatred outwardly, Garp could sense the seething resentment within me, fueled by Doflamingo's own suffering at the hands of the world nobles. I masked this animosity, biding my time until I possessed enough strength to unleash it upon them. "So, what have you decided, kid? Going to take their offer?" Garp inquired, amused by the elders' unwitting generosity. They had offered to provide the little monster with all the resources needed for his growth, a task Garp had been shouldering personally until now. While it was seldom discussed openly, the truth was that the stronger one aimed to become, the greater the resources required for their nurturing. In the real world, unlike in canon, such details were crucial. Even the most formidable pirate powerhouses allocated the majority of their loot toward maintaining their peak fighting condition. Well, why not? If they're offering to nurture me, who am I to deny them? All I need to do is grow stronger under your tutelage, learn everything you can teach me, and comfortably resign from the Marines. Isn't that my initial goal? I declared jovially, though I aimed to maintain modesty to avoid angering the Marine hero with my words. Kid, you're still harboring thoughts about quitting the Marines? Are you itching for a beating? Garp couldn't help but admonish me upon hearing my suggestion of leaving the Marines eventually. Garp-san, don't you think you should be more worried about the moles on your ship? I teased Garp, knowing that, like me, he detested the world nobles. Having the world government place spies on his ship was not something he would accept lightly. Hello dear readers. I would like to know what your thoughts about MC getting a devil fruit is, if he should get one or not, if yes then what would be a good fit, even non-canon fruit can be considered, please share me your thoughts on comments. Thank you. Above is a extra chapter for today. Chapter 28. Neil, North Blue. Within the confines of a huge mansion controlled by one of the big shots of the underworld in North Blue stood a majestic room where the young Doflamingo, who was currently 12 years old, was leisurely going through a children's storybook. Interest was evident in his eyes as he absorbed the tale. Standing next to him was Senor, clad in a perfectly tailored black suit, standing like an unwavering statue with no change in his expression. The door adjoining the room opened, and a tall man dressed in a crisp blue suit, followed by two burly goons who towered close to 4 meters, entered. He took his seat on the main chair, opposite the table where Daffy was seated. An array of rifles were neatly arranged on the table. Doflamingo was here to discuss some business and potentially buy a devil fruit from the underground big shot rumored to possess one in the underground market. Ah, the Tales of Nolan the Liar. It was quite an interesting book to read. Here in Neil, every child knows the story. Oh yes, I completely forgot that you are a child too, the underground leader commented with a smirk as if mocking Daffy, while his two goons chuckled. Doflamingo kept his composure, disregarding the man's comment, and addressed him, I'm here as per your request. I understand that you want to discuss and sign a large-scale deal with us regarding the latest weapons that my Don Quixote family produces, and you have also offered a certain devil fruit that you possess as part of the deal. Haha, child, you sure are impatient. But I must say, your family really did hit the jackpot when it came to these latest models of weapons. What are they called? Oh yeah, semi-automatic rifles. They sure are beautiful, the leader said, picking up one of the rifles arranged for display and demonstration from the table. He caressed the weapon as if he were caressing his lover, and one could see the greed in his eyes. Senor wanted to retaliate for mocking Doflamingo, but Doflamingo simply placed the book back down and gestured for Senor to hold back. Originally, I did have an intention to make a deal with your Don Quixote family. But then, after seeing you, I somewhat changed my decision. Why should I buy things from you when I can take everything that you own? Kid, you should know that in this world, strength is everything. How can you be so stupid to personally come into my turf without any precaution? The underworld leader chuckled as he placed the weapon back and started laughing mischievously, failing to notice that Doflamingo and Senor's expressions didn't show any signs of panic. Don't worry, kid. This room is completely soundproof, so no one outside will hear your screams. I suggest that you hand over all the blueprints for these weapons and all your assets. I have heard that your family has made quite a fortune in recent days. So, I suggest that if you don't want to suffer, just hand everything over. The man pulled out a revolver from his desk and placed it on the table. The two goons behind him smirked at Doflamingo and Senor. Within a few seconds, more than a dozen intimidating-looking goons poured into the room and stood guard near all the doors, closing off all avenues of escape. Ha 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 ha. Senor, why is it that every time we come across such fools? I can't wait to grow strong enough to get to the new world. I offer them a fair trade, and they don't want to take it. The fat bastard even has the audacity to talk about strength. Disregarding the atmosphere in the room, Daffy laughed loudly at the stupidity of the underground big shot. Master Daffy, would you like me to dispose of them? Senor questioned Daffy, as if the people surrounding them were irrelevant. The leader stood up angrily, picking up the pistol and pointing it at Daffy. Kid, you sure are audacious. I don't think you still understand the severity of the situation. Let me show you what you've gotten yourself into, he said, directing the pistol towards Senor and pulling the trigger. Bang! 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 The leader fired a series of shots, but contrary to everyone's expectations, 3 goons within the room fell like broken puppets as none of the bullets connected with Senor. Senor simply twitched his fingers, and the two large goons standing behind the man drew their weapons and started attacking the rest of the goons. What are you doing? Why are you attacking us? The other goons desperately tried to dodge and defend, but a few more gunshots were fired by their leader, effectively killing a few more goons. What the hell? What's happening to me? The leader panicked, his body was moving even without his own control, shooting his own subordinates. And when the two burly goons had killed all the remaining goons, Senor simply made a swiping gesture, and a thin string cut off the heads of both the goons. The leader was still holding onto his pistol, which was already empty, looking at the devils in front of him. He knew uttering a single wrong word would be his end, so he carefully moved his foot onto the panic button he had set on his side of the table and pressed it. You don't have to worry. No one is going to come to your rescue. Shall we start our meeting like I intended? Originally, I wanted to trade like a good businessman, but then you had to push your luck. Well, let's forget that. Tell me, where is the devil fruit that you promised me? Daffy questioned. The leader still had terror written all over his face, but he still held a string of hope, thinking backup would come. But then he heard one of the doors click. He instinctively wanted to think it was his men, but then a tall man wearing a crimson-colored suit, holding a blade dripping with blood casually entered the room. Daffy, the entire mansion is clear. Sorry, I couldn't find the devil fruit anywhere, but I did find their vault. They seem to have quite the wealth accumulated, Diamante chuckled while he leisurely used the shirt of the now dead goon to wipe clean his blade. You! Don't you dare do anything to me! I am part of the underworld organization. The entire underground will come after your head if you harm me. Spare me, and I will let bygones be bygones. The leader knew that everything was lost. His mansion had more than 200 goons, and if the tall man had come here, that means he must have passed through everyone, and he even had accessed their family vault. Daffy made a gesture towards Senor, and with a simple flick, an ear of the underworld big shot flew into the air. My ear, my ear. The man started rolling on the floor in pain. SSSSSSHHH. Did I give you permission to speak? Your voice is annoying. You'd better shut up before you lose your other ear, Daffy commented while smirking, and the man quickly covered his mouth and started sobbing. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. All I need is the devil fruit that you promised. Hand it over, and we will be on our way. You have a minute. Daffy, although a child, carried himself with majesty, and the recent years had toughened him up, so such things did not faze him as he knew how this world worked. The man scrambled onto his feet with fear etched all over his face and quickly started fidgeting around the chair he was sitting on. He pushed away the chair with all his might and tore away the carpet in all haste, revealing a safe that was perfectly lined so that it aligned with the floor. Even Daffy was surprised by the man's ingenuity. No wonder I couldn't find the fruit despite searching the whole mansion. You have always been sitting on top of it like a chicken, weird fella, Diamante couldn't help but mock. In the meantime, the man quickly opened the safe and retrieved a small chest, running towards where Daffy was seated and presenting the chest while on his knees. Master, please, spare my life. After passing the chest and its key, the man started profusely begging while knocking his head on the floor. However, Daffy didn't care about the man's actions. Click. The little chest opened with a resounding click, and Daffy opened the box carefully. Within the chest lay a single fruit, a pear-shaped grey-colored fruit with spiral patterns and a blood-red stalk. It sure is a Logia fruit. I didn't believe the fool would really hold a Logia fruit and not use it. Daffy couldn't help but chuckle. Daffy now had decent knowledge regarding most devil fruits because of the information Ross had shared. The fruit in front of him was the Logia-type Sudsud fruit. The man who had been begging Daffy was shocked when he heard the fruit was a legendary Logia-type devil fruit. He had only come into possession of this fruit recently and had yet to discern the type of fruit it was. So when Daffy disclosed it was a Logia fruit, his face showed immense greed, despite his dire situation. He quickly pounced forward to grab the fruit from Daffy's hand and consume it, but before he could reach Daffy, he was completely trapped by metal-like strings. Senor simply clenched his fist, and the man got sliced into multiple pieces right before everyone's eyes. Senor, your control over the string fruit is quite exquisite. Daffy couldn't help but comment. It had been only a year since Senor consumed the string fruit that was originally intended for Daffy, but Senor had been mastering his string powers at a very fast pace, which made Daffy praise him. Here, Daffy tossed the Logia fruit towards Diamante, who was waiting by the side. I know my brother has promised you good devil fruit. I'm sure this fruit will be a good match for you. Despite having found quite a few devil fruits, Daffy has yet to consume one. Diamante caught the Logia fruit deftly, his eyes gleaming with anticipation as he examined the mysterious fruit in his hand. The weight of its power felt tangible, almost intoxicating. However, he quickly collected himself. No, Daffy, why don't you keep this alongside the flame fruit? This way, you and Ross will have a Logia-type fruit. We don't know if we can really get the rumble fruit, we still haven't gotten any updates from Treble and Skypiea, and he and his team have already been searching for more than a month. Diamante shared his thoughts regarding the Sud fruit. Although Treble had taken a team and reached Skypiea using the High West, they needed to be absolutely careful regarding the devil fruit because Daffy could only trust Treble and not all the goons that worked under him, so the search has been going at a snail's pace. Their only comforting thought was that the lightning fruit had been lost for centuries, so no one would recognize it. But one cannot judge human greed, so they had left the rest to luck. Haha, Diamante, you underestimate my brother. Although he hasn't shared his opinion regarding devil fruits, I know he is not someone who would go after just any fruit. Not that this fruit is inferior or anything, but he has his pride. He will only go after the best, and if not for me, he would have coveted the lightning Logia. And I intend to do something about it. Daffy reminisced about his brother, who had given him so much information that it even shocked Daffy to his core. But Daffy never once chose to question his brother since the day what happened at Mary Gosa. If there was one person Daffy would believe in this world wholeheartedly, then it would be Rosinante. Creator's thoughts. _Steely. To all my readers. I want to extend my deepest gratitude for your unwavering support on this exhilarating journey of storytelling. Your enthusiasm fuels my passion for crafting immersive worlds and unforgettable characters. For those eager to dive into the next chapters of our One Piece saga before anyone else, I invite you to join me on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll not only gain access to exclusive advanced chapters but also play a pivotal role in shaping the future of our narratives. Your support means the world to me, and it is your encouragement that propels me forward in this creative odyssey. Together, let's explore the depths of imagination and bring our wildest dreams to life. Your support, in whatever form it comes, will help me continue dedicating time and effort to this project. It's entirely voluntary, and your readership alone is already a fantastic reward. Thank you for understanding and for being a part of this fanfiction adventure. Join me on Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/silent_steely and let's make magic happen, one chapter at a time. With boundless gratitude. Silent_steely. Patreon, patreon.com/silent_steely. ko-fi.com/silent_steely. Creation is hard, cheer me up. Comment. 7 Comment. Vote. Chapter 29. Diamante, you don't have to worry about Ross. I will keep the flame fruit for my brother in case we cannot find the lightning fruit. And it's still too early for me to eat a devil fruit. I prefer to hone my haki to a decent standard before I consume a devil fruit, so go ahead and eat it. Our family still lacks strong fighters. After you eat this fruit, we can start challenging the mafia powers in North Blue. You will sure have your work cut out for you, Daffy chuckled while explaining the situation to Diamante. After a few moments of deliberation, Diamante finally resolved himself and took a bite of the devil fruit. Yuck, this sure tastes nasty, Diamante commented as he took another bite into the fruit. Although they knew they only needed a single bite under Daffy's insistence, everyone in the family who consumed devil fruit made it a point to consume the complete fruit. Diamante-san, I remember you mocking me when I ate the devil fruit, saying how bad can a fruit taste. Senor smirked while making fun of Diamante, who was now almost gagging. So, how do you feel, Diamante? Any changes? Daffy questioned regarding Diamante's current status. However, Diamante simply drew his pistol and fired a shot through his outstretched palm. Bang! Oh, so this is the famed elementalization of the Logia. It sure is crazy. Diamante admired the hole that was quickly closing up, feeling no discomfort or pain due to the bullet. Diamante, don't make the same mistake as other Logia users. You aren't invincible just because you ate a Logia fruit. You should know there are ways to counter Logia, so you need to redouble your efforts regarding haki to not fall back. Ross has also advised me to somehow acquire sea stones so that our devil fruit users can start resistance training in tandem, so that we won't be caught off guard in the future, Daffy cautioned, despite being happy for Diamante. He shared his words of caution as he saw Diamante slipping into the mindset of most Logia users, which made him remember what his brother once said to him: Logia users who think they're invincible tend to have short lifespans. Ha ha ha, Daffy, I know. I was just getting used to my new powers. I think we should leave before we are besieged by the Lvneal Kingdom's army and marines. I'm sure this bastard had some connection with them. Diamante gestured towards the now split body of the fallen underworld big shot and snickered. Yes, let's leave. We have quite a lot of work to take care of, Daffy stated, getting up while making sure to pick up the children's book of Lyre Noland and walking out of the room, followed by Senor and Diamante. New world. As I pushed myself up into a handstand, I could feel the immense weight pressing against my whole body because I was also carrying a ton of weight using my legs. 9,612, 9,613, 9,614. The strain was intense, but I pushed through it, determined to reach my goal. Each repetition felt like lifting a mountain, but I knew that was how I'd become stronger, how I'd conquer the challenges that awaited me in the new world. With each push, I could feel the muscles in my legs, arms, and core working tirelessly, propelling me upward against the resistance. I am currently immersed in my training routine, as usual. This had become my norm, as most of my time was either spent sparring, training, or fighting with pirates. Recently, I have come to realize that my physique is becoming a limitation in my pursuit of haki, especially my armament haki. Since I had unlocked the basic workings of emission, an advanced form of armament haki, my armament haki hadn't been increasing. Upon consulting Garp, I realized the issue: my physical body and stamina couldn't support any more armament haki. If I needed to strengthen it, then I needed to increase my physique or allow my body to grow completely as my age progresses. When Garp realized that I had touched the threshold of emission at the age of 10, he had advised me to concentrate more on my physique and increase my overall vitality for the time being. So recently, I have immersed myself in physique-enhancing training and swordsmanship. Shit! How can a child eat so much? My back's aching from all that cooking. He literally ate an entire sea king in one sitting. Our lieutenant sure is a monster, a cook from Garp's ship couldn't help but complain. In the recent days since I had started working on my physique, their burden has increased drastically. But I did not care. When I had an avenue to eat tasty and nutritious food, why would I miss it? So, I regularly caught sea kings for my meal and passed them to the kitchen. It sure was the right decision to learn sea makiken, life return. It helped me quickly absorb all the nutrition from the massive amount of food that I ate. I could now proudly say that even Canon Luffy was no match for my appetite. Maybe the only person I thought might be able to beat me when it comes to eating is probably Big Mom herself. SSSSHHH. You moron, are you dumb? Do you know how strong Lieutenant Ross is? He can fight fearsome pirates head-on. There are quite a few people he has saved on this ship, so you better watch what you say. And it's our job as cooks to serve as much food as he eats, a senior cook admonished the other, who was feeling exhausted about cooking for me. What most people on the ship didn't realize was that I could hear everything that went on within the ship. As part of my training, I always kept my observation haki and armament haki active. Despite consuming a large amount of stamina, this method made it easier to hone my haki and also increased my haki quality and quantity. I knew for a fact that the new cook was a CP agent who had joined Garp's ship during the last recruitment. I had already found out about every rat that was on Garp's ship. Being able to read people's emotions and thoughts was a massive advantage in this bloodthirsty world. I hadn't even shared this newfound ability of observation haki with Garp yet, nor did I intend to share it with him. As for the spies, Garp had already started weeding them out one by one, so I did not intervene. I had to commend how thorough and efficient these CP agents were. If I did not have all my overwhelming abilities, like emotion sensing and the voice of all things, there was no way I could have found these rodents so easily. Just as I was thinking of these things, I detected a flying slash in my direction. I quickly dropped the barbell weights on my leg and transitioned quickly, sending out a rank Yaku to clash with the incoming sword attack. The two attacks clashed midair and dispersed, and I quickly stood up as I knew it was Bogard who was testing my awareness. After he started teaching me swordsmanship, he always had a habit of launching such attacks randomly to hone my instincts. He didn't even forego the time I used to rest, he would even randomly attack when I was asleep. He wanted me to keep my guard up even during sleep, and I kind of agreed with his mindset. Not bad, kid. Your instincts are quite sharp. I had even masked my presence to launch that attack, but it seems like you can now detect my presence even if I try to hide it. Bogard was delighted to see his student have such keen senses. For a swordsman, his senses were paramount, they should be able to detect every minute change within their surroundings. Maybe you will soon surpass me, kid. Bogard sheathed his sword and started walking towards me. I used my towel to quickly wipe off the sweat from my body. I could detect the sadness in Bogard's eyes as he laid his gaze upon the slave symbol on my back. Everyone within the ship knew that I carried the mark of a celestial dragon's slave, but none of them had ever dared to question me about it. Only Garp and Bogard knew the truth of the matter, which I'm sure they must have received from Kong. It wasn't like I couldn't hide the mark, but I kept it as a reminder. The last time a bounty hunter tried to capture me in one of the port towns for the slave mark on my back, I had beaten him to within an inch of his life and hung him from a post so that the entire port town could admire my handiwork. Doesn't that bother you? Bogard asked, knowing what that mark symbolized. Not really, Bogard-san. I was weak back then, I couldn't retaliate. I only blame my weakness. Even now, it reminds me every day that I am weak and that I can be at the mercy of others at any moment. It motivates me to become stronger with each breath. If not, I will end up in a similar situation. I shared my thoughts with my swordsmanship master. Bogard understood my reasoning and did not question me further regarding the matter. HQ has confirmed Roger Pirate's current location. They are currently in Saints Island. Bogard shared the new updated information regarding our target, or rather, Garp's target. Saints Island? Isn't that? I quickly recalled the information regarding Saints Island in the New World. Similar to how Drum Kingdom was famous for its medicine in the Paradise half of the Grand Line, Saints Island was a place dedicated to the healing arts within the New World. Because of their neutrality, none of the pirates dared cause any trouble in this hallowed land, as they treated everyone without discrimination. Any pirate who caused trouble there would be quickly eliminated by the other pirates because, unlike Marines and the world government, who could have access to high-class medical care, pirates only had limited options. Saints Island was a safe haven that even the world government hesitated to touch because it was within the New World, and the backlash would be huge. Bogart-san, did the Roger Pirates have any big clashes with Shiki or any other powerhouses of the New World recently? I couldn't help but inquire, because if the Roger Pirates had to visit Saints Island, it meant the issue was serious. This must be around the time when Roger discovered his illness. If not, the only other reason could be that someone in the crew was seriously injured, but I was much more sure it was because of the former reason. Roger was sick, and this would start to change everything in the future, like an avalanche. No, we don't have any reports of such large-scale clashes. Although Shiki's fleet has had some minor skirmishes with Roger pirates, nothing major has happened. Bogard, as someone who manages all the information on behalf of Garp, was privy to most of the intelligence from HQ. So, is Garp-sensei going to wait for backup, or is he planning to lunge headfirst into battle this time as well? I couldn't help but ask because every time we fought against the Roger pirates, Garp would become a different monster altogether. It was close to an obsession for Garp to capture Roger. However, sometimes he forgets to consider that most of Roger's crewmates were monsters themselves. Despite our larger numbers, without proper backup from Admiral-level fighters like Sengoku or Zephyr, restricting them was an impossible task. This was one of the major reasons that Garp was never able to corner the Roger pirates efficiently. Even if Garp and Sengoku besieged the Roger pirates together, with the likes of Dark King Silver's Rayleigh, Scopper Gaban, and many more, unless Roger wanted to fight to the death against Garp, there were really zero chances of cornering the Roger pirates with just Garp's squadron. Chapter 30. Garp was acutely aware of this reality better than anyone, yet he still chose to confront Roger and his gang. Each time, it would erupt into an epic clash that lasted for days. The saving grace was that most of the powerhouses within the Roger pirates chose not to target the weaker marine soldiers. When Roger and Garp clashed, most just watched from the sidelines, as if Garp's crew and the Roger pirates had formed a tacit understanding. Even when they clashed under Garp's orders, the fight was to restrain the enemies because he knew that if their entire crew fought to the death, perhaps only Bogard might survive, while the rest, including me, would surely perish. It wasn't that I hadn't crossed swords with monsters like Rayleigh to measure the gap between us, but every time, he would simply swat me away like a fly. The difference was like a gaping chasm, unfathomable and daunting. Wait, are you deep in thought, Ross? Bogart couldn't help but ask, noticing my contemplative demeanor. The tides will soon start to shift, Bogart-san. The world is changing, I replied, collecting my training equipment, including all the weights, and walking towards my designated cabin to prepare for another encounter with the Roger pirates. It took us another 3 days to reach Saints Island, and luckily for us, HQ had notified us that the Roger pirates had yet to leave the island. As we approached the island, I observed a remarkable sight. A large number of ships lay anchored along its shores. Most of these ships bore the Jolly Roger of pirates, while others belonged to certain kingdoms and merchant vessels. However, unlike other pirate-infested islands where chaos and violence reigned, Saints Island exuded an air of tranquility. Amidst the array of ships, my attention was immediately drawn to a majestic vessel, the Oro Jackson. This three-masted galleon stood out with its imposing presence and intricate design. Its sails billowed in the wind, and its hull gleamed in the sunlight, showcasing the craftsmanship that went into its construction. The Oro Jackson would later become renowned throughout the world as the only ship to have traveled across the entire globe. As it was a neutral island, Garp also did not want to create any sort of conflict. Our marine warship came to a stop a mile away from the port, adhering to this principle. The pirates on the island had also noticed the imposing marine warship anchored a mile away from the shore of Saints Island. I had already detected movements on the Oro Jackson using my observation haki, but I was certain that the Roger pirates were already aware of the identity of this marine warship despite its broken figurehead. Within a few minutes, the Oro Jackson raised its sails and slowly started moving in the direction of our ship. As the Oro Jackson drew closer, Garp stood at the forefront, mentally prepared for a potential conflict. I spotted Gold Roger, the future pirate king, majestically standing on the Oro Jackson's railing, carrying Ace on his hip. Roger's presence was commanding, exuding an aura of authority and power that seemed to envelop the entire ship. His legendary status was evident in every movement, every glance, as if he was a force of nature personified. As the Oro Jackson drew nearer, I could see Gold Roger, the pirate king, standing tall and imposing on the ship's railing. His presence commanded respect and awe, with an aura of authority that seemed to radiate from him. Ace, his cutlass, rested casually on his hip, a testament to the bond between them. But it wasn't just Roger who caught my attention. His first mate, Rayleigh, stood beside him, his expression cautious as he eyed Garp and the rest of our crew. I could sense an air of tension emanating from him, as if he was wary of the potential consequences of a confrontation with Garp. "Roger, are you sure about fighting Garp now?" Rayleigh whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. "We still haven't ascertained your current condition. It wouldn't be wise for you to clash with Garp before we exactly figure out what's wrong with your body, and if the Marines knew, then it would become troublesome." Roger's laughter rang out, carrying across the distance between our ships. "Ha ha ha, Rayleigh, you've disclosed the information yourself despite being so cautious," he remarked, his eyes flickering towards me with uncanny precision. I felt a chill run down my spine as our gazes met, as if I was being weighed down by the entirety of the ocean itself. Yet, I refused to back down, meeting his gaze head-on despite the sweat beading on my back. "Roger." Garp's booming voice echoed through the air, and the overwhelming pressure on me receded like a retreating tide. In that brief moment, the vast difference between us became glaringly apparent. He was an absolute monster, much like Garp himself. "Garp. You've certainly found yourself quite the recruit," Roger remarked with a hearty laugh. "He's grown remarkably strong since our last encounter. Perhaps he'll hit it off with Shanks and Buggy here, ha ha ha." I remained composed, fully aware of Roger's ability to detect any of my advanced observation haki techniques that helped me read emotions and thoughts. Even the voice of all things was off limits in his presence. However, despite the risk, curiosity got the better of me, and I attempted to eavesdrop on Rayleigh's conversation. It confirmed what I suspected: Roger was indeed sick, and they had only recently discovered it. If the canon knowledge held true, Crocus would soon join the Roger pirates to aid in Roger's recovery. Observing Shanks and Buggy, Roger's two apprentices aboard the Oro Jackson, brought back memories of our clashes during confrontations between Roger and Garp. Each encounter lasted for days, with both sides battling relentlessly for supremacy. Shanks, a celestial dragon possibly from the Fergarland family, had been discovered by Roger in a chest after the God Valley incident. He would go on to become one of the future Yonko and play a significant role in Luffy's journey as a pirate. Despite being born in the same year as me, the current Shanks still fell short in comparison. He had yet to fully harness his potential as a powerhouse. However, it was another newcomer to the Roger pirates who truly caught my attention: Douglas Bullet. According to the canon, Buggy had started a rumor that he was someone who could clash evenly with the Dark King himself. I harbored doubts about such a ridiculous claim. Maybe Rayleigh was just playing around so as not to hurt the teen's ego. The current Bullet who stood before me was a teen around 16 or 17 years old. Yet, a part of me longed for a confrontation, eager to measure myself against an opponent so consumed by combat. Perhaps it was my intense fighting intent that drew the attention of Douglas Bullet, who turned nonchalantly to face me, a creepy smile curling his lips. "Oi, Bullet, be careful. That kid's not like your average Marine trainee. Even Roger praises him for his tenacity and talent," Scopper Gabon remarked from his perch on a wine barrel, noting the exchange between Bullet and me. "Roger has offered him a spot on our ship more than once, despite him being Garp's protégé." Bullet's gaze grew more intense as he absorbed Gabon's words. In his mind, Roger was the only opponent worth his attention, and everyone else was insignificant. He had joined the Roger pirates solely for the opportunity to face Roger in combat, and hearing that even Roger had praised me ignited his battle lust like a raging tornado. Roger, unperturbed by the exchange, was curious to see how much I had grown in recent months. He didn't intervene, as long as the skirmish didn't escalate into a death match. "Roger. I have no intention of disturbing the peace on this neutral island. If you're not a coward, follow me. I've found a good spot with a chain of islands where we can go all out without holding back," Garp declared, goading Roger into a confrontation. Sensing something amiss in Rayleigh's reaction, Garp wanted to ensure that Roger engaged in battle rather than attempting to flee. "Very well, Garp. We can fight to our heart's content. No one will intervene. I hope you'll join our banquet after the fight," Roger replied with a hearty laugh. "And perhaps you can bring the kid along." With a few instructions from Garp, the Marine ship began to move towards the designated battlefield, followed closely by the Oro Jackson. Garp had already received multiple calls from Kong, which he chose to ignore, urging him to wait for reinforcements, but both Sengoku and Zephyr were occupied, and Kong himself couldn't make a sudden move so deep into the new world. So I knew the so-called reinforcements would take a long time, and Garp was not patient enough to wait such a long time. "So you want to fight him?" Bogart's voice came from my side, indicating that he too sensed the battle intent emanating from me. I began undoing my sword belt and handed it over to Bogart, who shot me a questioning look at my action. "Oh, I'm just worried that those monsters would end up killing me if I cut down one of their own. My blade is meant for killing. I'd rather fight him with my fists. People might forget that I am Garp-san's student if I rely too much on my sword," I explained. I knew that killing Douglas was not an option. I couldn't disrupt the fragile balance that Garp and Roger had established, nor was I foolish enough to believe I could challenge someone as formidable as the Dark King and the rest. Bogart squinted his eyes and gave me an ugly look as I handed him my sword. As my swordsmanship instructor, everything I had learned about blades during my time in the Marines had come from him. Fine. But don't you dare lose. You know how Garp-san will punish you if you fail, Bogart warned. He understood how much I had grown in strength and could also vaguely estimate the power of the young man challenging me. Thus, he had an idea of who would likely emerge victorious in the fight. On the Oro Jackson, everyone eagerly observed the preparations for the upcoming confrontation, with one exception, Silvers Rayleigh, the first mate of the Roger pirates. He entertained the idea of silencing me, knowing that I had eavesdropped on their secret about Roger's condition. However, he ultimately shook his head and sighed. "Rayleigh, don't try anything stupid. Garp will hunt you to the end of this world if you harm the child under his protection. Even I may not be able to save you from his wrath if you cross that line," Roger cautioned his friend, understanding his first mate's line of thought. He knew Garp's fierce determination to protect those dear to him, a trait shared by both of them. "I also believe that the kid will play a huge role in the future, perhaps even changing the balance of the entire world. I believe he is destined for greatness," Roger added, casually tapping his friend's shoulder while laughing. In doing so, he subtly conveyed his thoughts, urging Rayleigh not to target me. "Tch, Roger, I'm not that heartless to target a child because of your stubbornness. Is this fight really necessary? We could just leave. Garp has only a single ship and can't stop us. With our ship's speed, we could be away from here before more Marines arrive. But no, you have to go ahead and clash with your Marine friend, even before you ascertain what kind of disease is ailing your body," Rayleigh lamented. Having been with Roger since the beginning, he understood his friend's nature. If it was a challenge, Roger wouldn't back down. Haha, where's the fun in that, really? One must never run away from a fight, and for all we know, I am simply being affected by a different type of cold, Roger remarked with a chuckle. He understood that his friend was worried about him, especially since the doctors at the infamous Saint Island were unable to diagnose his condition. Instinctively, Roger knew there was something wrong with his body, but for the time being, he brushed it off as a simple ailment to avoid worrying Rayleigh further. Chapter 31. Whatever, just take care of your body. Don't drag the fight on for too long. If I feel we're being encircled by Marines later, I'll pull you back into the ship and leave immediately. Is that understood? Rayleigh's tone turned stern as he issued a warning to his friend, fully aware of Roger's tendencies. Fine, I get it. I haven't had a decent fight in the past couple of months. Garp sure knows when to come knocking, ha ha ha, Roger replied, his tone light as he quickly jumped in the direction of the island where Garp had left earlier. As Garp and Roger moved towards the largest island chosen as their battleground, I found myself facing the young Douglas Bullet, my opponent. The island we selected for the fight was close to where the ships were anchored. Although the island was of medium size, it would suffice for our clash. Kid, give up now before we start. I tend to go all out against all my opponents, so if you value your life, heed my words. Bullet warned, tossing aside the coat he was wearing and standing with his bare upper body facing me. In response, I mirrored his actions, removing the marine shirt I was wearing. A collective gasp rippled through the spectators who had decided to witness our fight, while most others chose to focus on Roger and Garp's battle. I was aware of the reason for their gasps. It was the mark on my back. However, I paid no mind to their reactions. I simply wanted to flex. Fighting Garp had never given me a feeling of superiority, as he always knocked me down when I felt arrogant about my strength. But now, I had a chance to show off, and I intended to make the most of it to carve out a name for myself. Ready or not, pirate, here I come, I whispered, then immediately used Soru and flickered in front of Bullet. He didn't expect me to go on the offensive from the start, and though he momentarily faltered, he quickly crossed his arms. Just before I made contact with my fist, he instinctively coated his arms with haki. Boom! My fist, clad in haki, connected with his crossed arms, sending a shockwave that caught many spectators by surprise, including Bullet himself. Despite blocking my attack, Bullet flew through the air and crashed into the forest behind him, toppling quite a few trees in the process. Phew, what a monster! The kid has grown even stronger since the last time we met. Scopper Gaban, who had surprisingly chosen to observe my fight, whistled loudly as I sent Bullet flying through the air. Bullet, having crashed, stood up, pushing aside a fallen tree. He dusted himself off and eyed me with a glint in his eyes. Being new to Roger's crew, he didn't know about me. Initially, he thought I was just bluffing, but now he realized I am not mere talk. Kid, you are good. You already have such dense haki at such a young age. No wonder Roger praises your talent. Come, then, let's see how much of a genius you are. Bullet rushed forward, coating his arm with haki. He had yet to use his devil fruit powers, believing it beneath him to do so against a kid at least half a dozen years younger than him. As Bullet rushed forward with momentum and punched, I simply tilted my head to dodge, countering with a ferocious jab, Busos Hoku Koka, aiming for Bullet's chest. However, he dodged with surprising agility, his movements were fluid like water. Undeterred, I followed up with a swift hook, aiming for his head, but he blocked it effortlessly, his arms coated in a shimmering haki of his own. Rapid strike! I shouted, unleashing a barrage of haki-clad punches, each one aimed with precision. Bullet countered with a series of punches of his own, his attacks coming fast and furious. We traded blows, the sound of impact echoing through the air like thunder. With a burst of energy, I launched myself into the air, flipping over Bullet's head and landing behind him with a graceful thud. I appeared behind Bullet despite his observation haki was on. Rankyaku! I cried out, my foot connecting with Bullet's back with enough force to send him stumbling forward. Seizing the opportunity, I followed up with a powerful uppercut, aiming for his chin. Meteor punch! I exclaimed as my fist connected, the impact sending Bullet flying through the air. He crashed to the ground with a resounding thud, but to my surprise, within seconds he sprang back to his feet with a fierce growl and spat. Is that all you've got? Bullet taunted, his eyes burning with determination and anger. I expected more from someone whom Roger himself praised. Despite him acting cool, I knew that my last attack had done quite some damage, evident from the bloodstains on the side of his mouth. To be honest, I was just getting warmed up. From the initial exchange, it was evident to me that Bullet was not the monster that I had hoped for. In the future, if anyone told me Bullet had fought the Dark King to a tie, then I would punch those people. The current me was superior to Douglas Bullet in every way. Even his armament haki was still in the initial stages of imbuement, which could be called a medium-level technique. I didn't know when he started training haki, but I was sure he was never going to catch up to me in the future. Meanwhile, on the central island, a clash of entirely different magnitudes was unfolding. Unlike the gradual build-up in my fight, this battle erupted at full throttle from the very start. The clash between Garp and Roger's House Hoku was unleashing continuous shockwaves, creating an aftershock that reverberated through the island. The pressure emitted by their conqueror's haki created a barrier, making it difficult for most spectators to remain standing. With a mighty swing, Roger unleashed his signature technique, Divine Departure. His cutlass, imbued with ferocious armament haki and conqueror's haki, sliced through the air with such force that it seemed to affect the very surroundings. However, Garp, never one to be outmatched, countered with equal ferocity. He coated his fist in a pitch-black layer of haki, infusing it with his own conqueror's haki. With a thunderous roar, he launched his attack to intercept Roger's incoming strike. Meteor Punch. The clash of their techniques created an explosion of power, the impact echoing across the island. The ground shook beneath their feet as the sheer force of their blows collided. It was a battle between two titans, each refusing to yield an inch. "You're one stubborn marine, Garp," Roger chuckled, wiping the sweat from his brow as he eyed his opponent warily. "Most marines would have given up the idea of catching me by now." Garp's gaze narrowed, his expression hardening as he locked eyes with his longtime adversary. "Stubbornness runs in the family, Roger," he retorted, his voice tinged with a hint of challenge. "But unlike you, I have a duty to uphold." Roger's grin remained undeterred by Garp's stern demeanor. "Ah, duty," he mused, his tone dripping with mockery. "Always getting in the way of a good time, aren't you, Garp?" Garp's grip tightened, his fists clenching, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down on him. "It's not about fun, Roger," he shot back, his voice firm and unwavering. "It's about justice. Someone has to keep the peace in this chaotic world." Roger's laughter echoed across the battlefield, a stark contrast to Garp's steely resolve. "Justice, hey?" he replied, his tone laced with skepticism. "I always knew you were a stickler for the rules, Garp. But tell me, how's that working out for you?" Garp's jaw clenched, his patience wearing thin. "Better than being a lawless pirate," he countered, his words laced with contempt. "At least I can sleep at night knowing I'm doing what's right." Roger's expression softened, a flicker of something akin to respect in his eyes. "Fair enough, Garp," he conceded, his tone taking on a more serious note. "But just remember, sometimes doing what's right means challenging the status quo." As the clash between Garp and Roger continued, the intensity of their battle seemed to defy the laws of nature itself. Each blow they exchanged resonated like thunder, echoing across the island and sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Roger, his eyes gleaming with determination, launched another devastating strike. With a swift motion, he unleashed a flurry of slashes with his cutlass, each one infused with his formidable armament haki. The air crackled with energy as the blade sliced through the atmosphere, leaving a trail of shimmering light in its wake. Garp met Roger's assault head-on, his fists moving with blinding speed as he countered each strike with his own formidable techniques. With a roar of effort, he unleashed his signature move, the blue hole, channeling the full force of his armament haki into a single, devastating punch. The impact reverberated through the air, sending shockwaves rippling across the battlefield. But Roger, ever the resilient opponent, refused to yield. With a defiant grin, he unleashed a powerful counterattack of his own, his cutlass glowing with an otherworldly aura as he channeled his conqueror's haki into the blade. With a mighty swing, he unleashed Royal Execution, a technique renowned for its sheer destructive power. The clash of their attacks sent shockwaves reverberating across the island, shaking the very ground beneath them. Spectators watched in awe as the two titans clashed, their battle reaching a fever pitch as they unleashed their most powerful techniques. But even as the battle raged on, neither Garp nor Roger showed any signs of backing down. With each passing moment, their attacks grew fiercer, and their movements became more fluid and precise. It was a battle of wills as much as it was a battle of strength, with each combatant pushing themselves to their absolute limits in pursuit of victory. The sun beat down mercilessly on the battlefield, its harsh rays illuminating the intense clash between Garp and Roger as they locked horns in a battle of titans. Meanwhile, on the medium-sized island, I danced around Douglas Bullet with the agility of a panther, my movements fluid and precise. With every step, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, heightening my senses and sharpening my focus. Bullet, on the other hand, was struggling to keep up, his massive frame laboring under the weight of my relentless assault. Despite his formidable strength, it was clear that he was outmatched in terms of speed and agility. As I darted around him, landing quick and calculated strikes, I could see the frustration building in Bullet's eyes. His breathing grew heavy, and sweat glistened on his brow as he attempted to anticipate my next move. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to gain the upper hand. Beside the battlefield, Scopper Gaban observed the exchange with keen interest, his expression unreadable. It was evident that he, too, had underestimated my abilities, but now he watched with growing respect as I outmaneuvered their newest recruit with ease. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, I murmured to myself, drawing inspiration from the legendary words of a boxing icon. The phrase seemed to encapsulate the essence of my fighting style, perfectly swift, agile, and deadly. With each passing moment, the gap between us widened, and my attacks wore down Bullet's defenses little by little. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to mount a significant counter-offensive, and it was only a matter of time before my relentless assault proved too much for him to bear. "Oi, Bullet, do you still think I'm not worth Garp's tutelage?" I couldn't resist taunting my opponent, who had been belittling me since the outset. Bullet's face contorted with anger at my words, his eyes almost glowing red with humiliation. I could practically hear his teeth grinding in frustration as he longed to tear me apart, but it was clear to both of us that I held the upper hand. "You little bastard! Is dodging all you know? If you've got the guts, try facing my attack head-on. Let's see if you can still talk after taking a single strike from me." Bullet's voice was laced with fury as he shouted, his pride preventing him from using his full abilities, including his devil fruit powers. Chapter 32. "Hey, Shanks, how did Ross get so strong? Do you think we can become as powerful as him in the future?" On the Roger Pirate's side, Buggy couldn't help but inquire of his friend, observing my battle with wide-eyed wonder. "Well, maybe it's possible. We just need to train like maniacs. I think we should have listened to Rayleigh-san when he told us to practice," Shanks mused, his gaze fixed on our skirmish. "But do you remember that he used to spar with us whenever our groups clashed? Do you think he was holding back against us? Isn't he our age? How did he become so strong that he can even put Bullet-san at a disadvantage?" Buggy's curiosity was palpable as he marveled at my strength in the midst of battle. Of course he must have been. If not, how do you explain all this? Now, do you understand why you should stop being lazy? You know, I had always wondered why he would rush at Rayleigh-san or Gaban-san after he defeated us every time. Now it all makes sense. Maybe, just maybe, if you practice regularly, you'll have a chance against me in the future, ha ha ha, Shanks remarked jokingly, his tone light despite the seriousness of his words. "Shanks? You, bastard! What's that supposed to mean? Even now, I'm stronger than you. Want me to prove it? Let's have a fight." Buggy's competitive spirit flared as he jumped around, eager to establish his supremacy among friends. Boom! But as their banter filled the air, the resounding shockwave from our clash of fists brought their attention back to the intense battle unfolding before them. "You think you can stand against me, you little cunt? You're just a kid playing with fire. Let me show you true power." With an evil smirk on his face, Bullet roared into the sky, his body surrounded by crackling blue lightning. The very air seemed to pulse with his overwhelming House Hoku haki. He believed he could overpower me with sheer force, but little did he know, I had been honing my own Conqueror's haki under the pressure of a powerhouse like Garp. On the sidelines, little Shanks and Buggy watched in concern as Bullet unleashed his House Hoku haki. "Uh-oh, Ross is in trouble now," Buggy whispered nervously to Shanks. "Bullet-san's House Hoku is no joke." But I remained unfazed, meeting Bullet's taunts with a confident smile. "You talk big, Bullet, but let's see if you can back it up." As Bullet's House Hoku surged with all his might, the ground trembling beneath us, I held my ground, channeling my own inner strength. With a determined glint in my eye and a smirk, I released my own Conqueror's haki, a dazzling display of black lightning tinged with gold. The intensity of my aura eclipsed Bullet's, causing him to falter and take a step back. Despite his efforts to match my power, I could sense the uncertainty in his eyes as my haki firmly suppressed his own. The sudden shift caught Bullet off guard, his eyes widening in shock. How is this possible? He stammered, disbelief evident in his voice. Whoa Shanks! Did you see that? Ross can use Conqueror's haki too! Buggy exclaimed, his eyes wide with astonishment as he watched the scene unfold. Meanwhile, Shanks' inner self was in turmoil. Did Ross just match Bullet sans house Hoku? Shanks whispered, his brow furrowed in confusion. I think so, Buggy replied, equally baffled. But how? Ross is just a kid like us. Across the battlefield, right next to Shanks and Buggy, Scopper Gaban watched with a solemn expression, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a sense of gravity. The two little Rogers apprentices had no idea that if not for Gaban's passive protection, they might have already been knocked out. This kid, he's something else, he murmured to himself. If he keeps growing at this rate, he'll become an unstoppable force in the future. The Marines sure lucked out this time around. On the central island, the clash reached new levels of intensity, with each strike sending shockwaves rippling through the air, a testament to the apex of strength in their world. Divine departure. Roger's cutlass ace sliced through the air, its edge coated in House Hoku haki. In response, Garp unleashed his signature move, Galaxy Impact, his fist crackling with power as it collided with Roger's weapon. Lightning-like ripples emanated from the clash, their conqueror's haki battling for dominance in a fierce struggle. The force of their collision sent both Garp and Roger hurtling through the air, their bodies crashing to the ground and skidding to a stop after several dozen meters. Despite the gravity of their battle, Roger couldn't resist a jest. Garp, tell me the truth. What have you been feeding that kid? Are you grooming some sort of monster to take on the world nobles? I always knew you had a knack for causing trouble for those bastards, ha ha ha. Even in the midst of combat, Roger's jovial nature shone through as he marveled at the spectacle unfolding on the medium-sized island on the outer edge. He recognized the immense talent and potential displayed by Garp's protégé, a testament to the Marines' unconventional methods of training. As Garp rose to his feet, a fierce determination burning in his eyes, he couldn't help but respond to Roger's jest with a hearty laugh of his own. Ha ha ha. You always did have a way with words, Roger. But let me tell you, that kid you see down there isn't just any other recruit. He's the future of the Marines, the embodiment of everything I've worked for. With a stern expression, Garp continued, his voice booming across the battlefield. I didn't feed him anything but the spirit of justice and the will to protect. He's a Marine through and through, and I'll be damned if I let anyone tarnish that. His words were punctuated by a resounding yell, his House Hoku haki flaring as he emphasized his point. And you, Roger, should know better than to put weird ideas into my student's head. He's not some pawn for your pirate games. He's a beacon of hope, a symbol of righteousness in this world. Garp, you sure are a jester, Roger jeered, his voice echoing with a mixture of amusement and challenge. And Rayleigh says you don't know how to make a joke. That kid becoming a Marine and serving those world nobles? Do you think it has even a remote possibility? I'm sure even you don't believe your own words, Garp. That kid can hear and speak to this world just like me. He will never be subservient in this lifetime. Mark my words, Garp, that kid is someone who was born to change this world. With his words punctuated by the surge of his conqueror's haki, Roger rushed forward, his aura blazing with determination, as he prepared to clash with his archenemy once again. Meanwhile, somewhere in the New World, the prisoner fleet carrying Kaido and his captured crew lay anchored near an uninhabited island. Normally, they should have reached the Red Line by now after the prisoner transfer was completed, but for a certain reason, the Marine fleet continued to lurk within the waters of the New World. Within the largest flagship, inside the most secure brig, the world's strongest creature was imprisoned. Kaido was bound tightly, even with his monstrous physique, leaving him with no chance of escape whatsoever. Despite mostly recovering from the injuries sustained in the fight with Garp, Kaido had never suffered such a humiliating defeat in his life since forming his own pirate group after the disbandment of Rock's pirates. He had always believed he could roam the seas unchallenged, but the recent clash with Garp had taught him an important lesson. Tugging on the sea stone chains for the 1000th time since regaining consciousness, he strained against his confinement. How long are you going to watch? If you have nothing to say, you should leave. I don't like bastards like you who sneak around, Kaido roared, glaring at a certain dark corner just outside the brig where he was held. Tack, tack, tack. Steady footsteps echoed on the metal floor as two tall figures emerged from the shadows, led by a man garbed in a white suit with a white mask covering his face. The other person following the lead agent was similarly attired. Such a shame, Kaido. There are rumors that you are the strongest creature in the world, and look where all that boasting has brought you. Maybe if you had steadily grown for another decade or so, you could have had a chance to stand against that man. But no, you had to go and challenge Garb, even after knowing he was directly involved in bringing down Rox DZBek. Or did you think you were already at their level? The lead agent from CP0 couldn't help but mock Kaido in his current condition. Even the world government was wary when dealing with Garb, yet a mere pirate, just because he had consumed the treasured devil fruit, wanted to challenge an apex powerhouse. As Kaido continued to struggle against the sea stone restraints, his frustration grew, with veins bulging in his neck as he strained against the unyielding chains. If I break free from these bonds, I'll rip you all apart. He threatened, his voice dripping with venom. The leader of CP0, unfazed by Kaido's threats, simply chuckled. First, you'll have to be capable of breaking free, Kaido, he taunted. With a smirk, he introduced the sea stone restraints as a new upgrade variant specially designed to restrain monsters like Kaido. No matter how much you struggle, your future is to spend your life in impelled down until death, he added, his tone mocking. Kaido's expression twisted into one of displeasure, but he knew better than to act rashly. These CP0 agents wouldn't have approached him without an agenda. Making a mental note to remember this insult, he demanded to know what the CP0 agent wanted. Despite his estimate that they should have already reached Impel Down, he could sense they were still in the New World. The CP0 agent's smile widened as he praised Kaido for being able to detect their location despite being bound. He then went on to say that the world government was willing to nurture him. However, Kaido immediately refuted, declaring vehemently that he would never be the world government's lackey. Bastard, do you think I would become the government's dog? Keep dreaming. Kaido bellowed in anger, the sea stone chains rattling under the sudden outburst. Before Kaido could get any angrier, the CP0 agent stopped him. I'm not suggesting servitude, Kaido. We're looking for a sort of cooperation, he explained calmly. Kaido paused, contemplating the agent's words. What kind of game was the world government playing? As he mulled over the offer, the tension in the air thickened, each moment pregnant with uncertainty and potential consequences. As Kaido's eyes narrowed, his voice rumbled with skepticism. Cooperation, you say? What could the world government possibly want from me? The CP0 agent's smile remained inscrutable as he responded, the world government recognizes your strength, or should I say your future potential, Kaido. We believe there are ways we can mutually benefit from a partnership. Kaido's lip curled in disdain. Mutual benefit? You mean to say you want to use me as a weapon against your enemies? The CP0 agent's expression remained unreadable. Think of it more as an alliance of interests. We have resources and influence that could be of use to you. Kaido's eyes flashed with defiance. I don't need the world government's resources. I can carve my own path in this world. The CP0 agent tilted his head slightly, his tone taking on a hint of persuasion. Consider this, Kaido. With our support, you could expand your influence beyond the New World. Imagine the power you could wield with the backing of the world government. Kaido's gaze hardened. I have no interest in ruling the world as your dog. I seek only to create a place where the strong can thrive, and with my own strength, I will one day rule the world. The CP0 agent's smile turned enigmatic. And we respect that, Kaido. But tell me, how are you planning to achieve that now that you are imprisoned and don't think you can escape this time around? So consider this an opportunity to further your goals. With our cooperation, you could achieve heights you never dreamed possible. Chapter 33. Kaido fell silent, his mind racing with possibilities. Kaido knew he truly couldn't trust the world's government. This is merely a ploy to manipulate him for their own ends. As he weighed his options, the air crackled with tension, both parties acutely aware of the stakes at hand. So what are you proposing, and what will I gain from all this? Kaido's deep voice rumbled through the brig, his imposing figure towering over the CP0 agent before him. Despite being bound by sea stone restraints, his eyes burned with curiosity and a hint of defiance. I knew you were a smart man, Kaido, the CP0 agent responded with a smirk, adjusting his suit. Let me lay it out for you. First and foremost, we will orchestrate your escape from this vessel, along with your crew. It will appear as though you broke free with your own strength, ensuring your reputation remains intact. In addition, we will provide discreet support, resources from the shadows, and other privileges. As the agent spoke, Kaido listened intently, his mind racing with possibilities. The prospect of freedom and support from the world government was enticing, but he remained wary of their true intentions. In return, the agent continued, his tone becoming more serious, we require a simple task. We want you to seize control of Wano country and secure a steady supply of sea stones for us. Wano is currently in a state of internal conflict, making it ripe for the taking. With our assistance, you'll have the means to establish your dominance. Kaido's eyes gleamed with interest at the mention of Wano. He knew of the country's secrets and potential power, but he also understood the challenges that lay ahead. And if I refuse? Kaido's voice reverberated with a low growl, his muscles tensing beneath the sea stone restraints. The CP0 agent chuckled softly, with a hint of amusement in his voice. Ah, but why refuse such a generous offer, Kaido-sama? However, if you were to decline, let's just say your future prospects would be significantly less favorable. Kaido gritted his teeth, weighing his options carefully. The allure of Wano and the support of the world government were tempting, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being manipulated. The CP0 agent's smile remained cryptic. Let's just say the world government has its own interests in Wano. But rest assured, Kaido, our goals align for the time being. And what assurance do I have that you will uphold your end of the bargain? Kaido's voice was laced with skepticism as he stared down at the CP0 agent. The agent's smile widened, his eyes gleaming with confidence. Kaido, you have my word, and as a goodwill we will even let the Lunarian youngster free alongside you. The world government always honors its agreements. Besides, it's in our best interest to see you succeed. Kaido pondered the agent's words carefully. Wano was a land shrouded in mystery, with secrets that even he had yet to uncover. If the world government was offering him control of such a coveted territory, there had to be a reason. Very well, Kaido finally conceded, his voice resolute. I accept your proposal. But remember, if you betray me, there will be consequences. The CP0 agent nodded, his smile never faltering. Of course, Kaido. You have my word that the world government will uphold its end of the bargain. As the negotiations concluded, Kaido couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into a web of intrigue and deception. But for now, the promise of power and control over Wano was too tempting to resist. With a nod of acknowledgement, Kaido fell silent, his mind whirling with thoughts of conquest and power. As the CP0 agent turned to leave, Kaido's resolve hardened. Whatever path he chose, he would carve out his destiny with his own hands, even if it meant allying with the world government for the time being. As the CP leader stepped out of the prison area, 2 more CP0 agents joined them, their faces concealed behind masks. Sir, we have an update regarding the matter of the world pirates, one of the agents reported. The mission was a success. Burndy World has been captured, and the Cypher Paul team is currently awaiting a fleet to escort the prisoner back to Impel Down. Haha, it seems like good news comes in packages, the CP0 leader chuckled. Fine, then, inform the elders that Kaido has agreed to our deal. Prepare to sink a few marine ships to make Kaido's escape believable. Target those that don't belong to the world government faction. We can also pin this incident on the remaining marines. As for the flagship and other battleships, let's set course to where Burndy World is being held and escort him to Impel Down after we sort out Kaido's matter. The lead CP agent's commands were swiftly executed by his subordinates, who moved with purpose to carry out their orders. Meanwhile, at the Chain Islands, where Roger and Garp were immersed in an epic duel, it had been more than 7 hours since the clash started. Garp and Roger's battle had already sunk the largest island, and they were now clashing on a nearby one. However, on the other end, I was facing a battered and bruised Bullet. He was sweating buckets, and his entire body was covered with a metallic exoskeleton that he had created using the metal he had disassembled. Originally, 2 hours into the fight, Bullet was still reluctant to use his devil fruit powers. However, as the fight continued and it became increasingly one-sided, even after he went all out with the use of Conqueror's Haki, Bullet chose not to hold back anymore. With the addition of his devil fruit powers, he could now match me, and the fight had been raging on for close to 5 hours now. Kid, are you underestimating me? I asked you to bring out your sword. Bullet growled furiously, his towering exoskeleton form now standing close to 8 meters tall. He had never felt so humiliated before, especially by someone he considered a mere kid. Realizing that I was a swordsman but had been relying solely on my fists throughout the fight only fueled his anger. Haha, Bullet, do you have a death wish? My sword will simply cut you down. You're still not worthy of my sword. Maybe you should try fighting me after a few more years, I mocked, unable to resist taunting my opponent. I knew I had extracted everything Bullet had to offer, and now I was just using him as a good old whetstone. Despite being completely outmatched, I had to commend his resilience for refusing to give up. Hey, Buggy, do you still think Bullet is comparable to Rayleigh-san in strength? I shouted out, addressing the rumor Buggy had spread. However, Buggy was currently hiding within an empty barrel, unwilling to face me. Red-nosed brat, look, your friend Ross is looking for you. It seems like he has a question he wants you to answer, Scopper Gaban taunted Buggy, knowing he was hiding to avoid confrontation. Gaban-san, my name is Buggy, that monster is not my friend. Please don't spread false rumors. I already have enough trouble as it is. Do you want to add more weight to my shoulders? Buggy stuttered from inside the barrel, trying to deflect the attention away from himself. Buggy, hiding inside the barrel is of no use. Ross surely has observation haki, and he must already know that you're hiding here, Shanks said as he approached and began shaking the barrel, trying to coax Buggy out. Get away, Shanks. Why don't you go and play buddy with that monster? I would like to safely live for a few more years. I don't want to attract his attention, Buggy pleaded, his voice trembling with fear. He had no desire to engage in the chaos of battle, preferring to live a quiet and leisurely life. Becoming a member of the Roger Pirates had been a stroke of luck for him, and he lacked the same drive and ambition as Shanks, who sought to follow in their captain's footsteps. You little bastard! I am going to kill you today, even if it's the last thing I do. Bullet bellowed like a crazed madman, his bloodshot eyes reflecting his overwhelming rage. Despite already overextending his stamina, he piled on another layer of exoskeleton and charged toward me with reckless abandon. Busos Hoku Koka. Bullet coated his entire gigantic arm with armament haki, intending to pummel me into the ground. Unlike him, although exhausted, I still had plenty of stamina left, and my haki remained strong. He was pushing himself forward with sheer battle lust, his determination blinding him to the reality of his dwindling strength. I could have easily dodged the massive fist aiming at me, but I opted for a straightforward clash. My arms turned pitch black, shimmering in the sunlight, as I prepared to end this farce once and for all. Meteor Fist. My entire fist ignited like burning metal as it collided with Bullet's incoming attack. Boom! The clash sent the massive metallic construct of Bullet hurtling through the air like a cannonball. Snap! Amidst the chaos of battle, the clear and crisp sound of bones breaking echoed across the battlefield. Bullet crashed into a small hill on the island, unable to maintain his armament haki any longer. Piece by piece, the exoskeleton around him crumbled, revealing the broken and defeated form of Douglas Bullet, the demon heir. His injuries were severe and visible to all who witnessed the aftermath of the battle. His right arm lay completely crushed beneath him, twisted at an unnatural angle. Bruises and lacerations covered his body, evidence of the intense physical trauma he had endured. He lay motionless amidst the rubble, defeated and broken, his once formidable presence reduced to a mere shadow of its former self. Huff! 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 I stood panting, my gaze fixed on the spot where the infamous Bullet had crashed. This wasn't the first time he had fallen, it had happened more than a dozen times already. Each time, he rose again like a man possessed, only to be knocked down once more. So, I kept my guard up, waiting to see if he would rise again to continue the fight. But after a minute passed, there was no visible movement, not even a twitch. Even my observation haki detected no signs of him stirring after the last devastating attack. Phew! I took a deep breath, exhaling slowly as the realization sank in that victory was finally mine after close to 7 hours of non-stop battling. As the dust settled around the fallen Bullet, the spectators, both Roger Pirates and Marines alike, watched in awe and disbelief. Among them, Shanks and Buggy, who emerged from his hiding spot, their eyes wide with amazement at the outcome of the battle. Shanks, did you see that? Buggy exclaimed, his voice trembling with excitement. Ross actually did it. He took down Bullet-san. Shanks nodded, his expression a mixture of pride and astonishment. I never doubted him for a second, that's my future rival, he replied, a grin spreading across his face. But to see him defeat Bullet-san like that. He truly is something else. On the side, the Marines, the Roger pirates, including Skipper Gaban, exchanged whispers of astonishment and admiration for the young fighter's prowess. "Did you see the way he fought?" one Marine whispered to another. "He's just a kid, but he took down that pirate from Roger's crew without breaking a sweat." "Kid, you sure are a monster," remarked Skipper Gaban, who had now arrived next to the fallen bullet. "You can already apply the principles of emission at such a tender age. Even I feel scared thinking about what you will grow up to be in the future." The weight of his words hung heavily in the air as I surveyed the aftermath of the battle. Victory had come after a hard battle, but it was a battle I was willing to fight to prove my strength and resilience in the face of formidable opponents like Bullet. Chapter 34. "Ha ha ha, Roger, it seems like your crew member lost. He couldn't even fight my apprentice, who is just a kid. Your quality of crewmates seems to be declining day by day." Garp couldn't help but mock Roger regarding Bullet's loss. Roger's face was grumpy, despite knowing that Bullet fought against a little monster. He would have liked it if it had at least ended up in a tie, but in the end, the kid had won with a handicap. The kid had yet to use his sword, he had just used his fists to take down Bullet. "Garp, you simply lucked out with the kid. Are you sure that you don't want him to join my crew? I promise to take good care of him." "I'm sure you are quite busy with your Marine duties," Roger countered. It was always him who made jest of others, and he didn't like to be on the receiving end, even against Garp. He was petty that way, so he once again brought up the topic of recruiting Ross to piss off Garp. "Roger! You bastard! Stay away from my student! I will kill you if you try something underhanded," Garp roared, his voice reverberating across the island as he resumed the battle, which had momentarily paused due to Bullet's defeat. Blue hole! Garp unleashed another devastating attack, his powerful fist enveloped in swirling currents of energy as he aimed directly at Roger, who responded with equal ferocity. The clash between the two legends intensified once more, each blow sending shockwaves rippling through the air and shaking the very ground beneath their feet. The sky darkened as ominous clouds gathered overhead, a testament to the sheer power being unleashed in their duel. As Garp and Roger continued their epic confrontation, the spectators watched in awe and anticipation, fully aware that they were witnessing history in the making. The Roger pirates and Marine soldiers alike held their breath, their hearts pounding with excitement as they witnessed the clash of titans unfold before their eyes. I had already returned to Bogard's side, who was spectating the epic clash between the two legends from the safety of the Marine battleship. A few hundred meters away, Oro Jackson lay anchored, with the Roger pirates gathered aboard to witness the spectacle. Bullet had already been sent off to heal from his injuries sustained in our earlier battle. On Oro Jackson, Gaban sat next to Rayleigh, both observing the confrontation between Roger and Garp with intense focus. Despite the distance between us and the battling titans, Rayleigh seemed poised to intervene at a moment's notice if necessary. Gaban provided Rayleigh with a detailed summary of my fight, ensuring that he was kept informed about the developments. As Rayleigh listened attentively, his eyes widened in surprise, and he glanced briefly in my direction. Our eyes met, and a subtle smile crossed Rayleigh's face as he nodded in acknowledgement. In return, I nodded back, a silent understanding passing between us in that moment. The battle raged on relentlessly, with the moon casting its radiant glow upon the scene. What had begun in the early hours of the morning, as dawn painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, now continued under the serene light of the night. Amidst the tranquil sea, the clash of titans echoed like thunder, reverberating through the stillness of the night. Under the ethereal illumination of the moon, the confrontation between the two legendary figures unfolded like a mesmerizing dance of death. Each clash of their formidable powers left a lasting impact on the surroundings, forever altering the landscape in their wake. Despite the intensity of their battle, there was a strange beauty to their struggle, as if their conflict had transcended mere violence and transformed into a form of art. Remarkably, amidst the chaos of their clash, there was an unexpected harmony between the Marine ship and the infamous pirates anchored nearby. Despite their opposing allegiances, there was no hostility between the two sides. Instead, there existed a rare form of mutual respect, upheld by the unwavering determination of their respective leaders, who fought with a fierce desire to emerge victorious at any cost. A Marine captain on Garp's ship came running towards Rear Admiral Bogard, who was still immersed in the fight. "Rear Admiral Bogard, we have an emergency mission from HQ," the captain said, sweat dripping down his forehead. Intrigued, I quickly read the captain's thoughts, finding them amusing. Bogard noticed my reaction but ignored it, turning his attention to the Marine captain. "Haven't we already updated them regarding our clash with the Roger pirates?" What could be more important than apprehending an overlord pirate crew from the New World? Spit it out, what are you not telling me? Bogart's authority within Garp's ship was second only to Garp himself. Sometimes, he even refuted Garp's orders, earning immense fear and respect from everyone on the ship. This. Bogart-san, we just received an update that Kaido has escaped. He sank 9 battleships and escaped from the prison fleet along with most of his crew. HQ wants us to pursue the enemy and capture them again if possible, the captain conveyed, sweating buckets under Bogart's gaze. As Bogart listened to the report, he unconsciously released his strength, crushing the steel railing he held onto. He now understood why I was laughing so hard. It was a rare sight to see Bogart visibly angry. He was usually as calm as a cucumber, maintaining a neutral expression in any situation. Ross, shut up, this is not a laughing matter, despite how amusing it may be for you. And don't you dare say I told you so to either my face or to Garp-san later. Is that understood? Bogart's frustration was evident. He knew I had a penchant for taunting them whenever my predictions came true, yet he couldn't scold me, as my warnings could have prevented the loss of 9 marine battleships and the lives lost with them. I simply nodded, knowing that, despite my knowledge of such an event occurring, rubbing it in Bogart's face was not the right thing to do. I remained quiet, returning to the fight and letting Bogart deal with the issue. Tell HQ that we are occupied. We will currently be unable to assist them regarding the issue. Have them dispatch an admiral if they cannot wait. Let them know we had offered to escort the prisoner, but it was their decision to have us hand over the prisoner and pursue Roger. And now they want us to let go of Roger and pursue Kaido again. Ask them if they take us for fools. Ask them to go and shove that order up their own. Bogart's voice was full of frustration as he vented his anger. The Marine captain and a few other Marines around him dared not even breathe. The poor Marine captain was turning blue, holding his breath, unsure of what to do. If he relayed Bogart's message back to HQ, he was sure to face repercussions when he returned to Marineford from his superiors in the communication department. Bogart-san, let the poor guy go, will you? If he relays such a message, then I am sure they would transfer him to some remote corner of this world, burying him beneath paperwork. I intervened, sensing the tension in the air. I turned to the captain. Just let HQ know we will look into the matter immediately after we deal with the Roger pirates. Let them know that Garp-san is currently locked in combat with Roger, and if possible, ask them to dispatch reinforcements, preferably Zephyr-san or Sengoku-san, I instructed the captain, offering a solution to the situation. The captain, as if grabbing a lifeline, quickly ran into the ship to relay the message to HQ. Everyone within the ship knew I was Garp's apprentice, so despite my age, my words held great weight. As the fight entered its 3rd day, the ferocity between Garp and Roger showed no signs of waning. Both fighters continued to clash neck to neck, their stamina and combat prowess seemingly endless. I marveled at their ability to maintain such a high level of intensity for 3 continuous days. Meanwhile, Bogart had noticeably calmed himself over this time, though the tension still lingered. Amidst the relentless battle, news from the outside world reached us. The first report detailed Kaido's daring escape. However, the narrative spun in the news leaned heavily on blaming the Marines for Kaido's freedom. It portrayed Kaido as an unstoppable force, almost glorifying his escape while condemning the Marines for their apparent negligence. The paper insinuated that a stronger Marine figure should have escorted Kaido alongside such a formidable pirate, questioning the judgment of the Marines. The second news item concerned the capture of Burndy World by the world government, a significant development that seemed to pale in comparison to the chaos unfolding between Garp and Roger. Yet, it added to the complexity of the situation, showcasing the intricate web of events unfolding in the world beyond our battlefield. As the clash between Garp and Roger reached its crescendo, the air crackled with anticipation. "You're pushing yourself too hard, Roger," Garp grunted, his voice strained with effort as he unleashed his mighty fist. "Galaxy impact." Roger grinned, his eyes gleaming with determination. "And you're holding back, Garp," he retorted, meeting Garp's attack head-on with his own counterattack. Divine departure. The collision of their techniques sent shockwaves rippling through the air, shaking the very foundations of the island. Lightning danced across the sky, illuminating the fierce determination etched on both their faces. But then, a sudden jolt coursed through Roger's body, causing him to cough up blood. He stumbled for a moment, and in that split second, Garp's galaxy impact surged forward with renewed ferocity, slipping past Roger's defenses. Gritting his teeth, Roger managed to summon his armament haki, to defend against Garp's onslaught. But the force of Garp's punch was overwhelming, sending Roger hurtling towards the ground with bone-shattering force. With a thunderous impact, Roger was sent hurtling towards the ground, crashing into the mountain below. Rayleigh, who had been watching the battle with keen eyes, swiftly moved to Garp's side, his sword drawn in readiness to intervene, and stood between the two. But as the dust settled and the rubble cleared, Roger emerged from the wreckage, bloodied but unbowed, his sword in hand. As Roger struggled to rise from the rubble, Rayleigh approached cautiously, concern etched in his features. "Are you all right, Roger?" he asked, his voice laced with a rare hint of worry. Roger chuckled weakly, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "I've had worse," he replied, his gaze defiant despite the pain, and he shouted at Garp. "But I'll be damned if I let you have all the fun, Garp." Rayleigh, ever watchful, turned around towards the marine hero, his sword drawn but his expression grave. "Enough, Garp," he said firmly, his gaze flickering between the two titans. Rayleigh stood between them, his presence commanding attention. "This fight is over," he declared firmly, his gaze unwavering. Garp nodded reluctantly, his fists unclenching as he took a step back. "Fine," he conceded, casting one last glance at Roger. "But don't think this is over, Roger. We'll settle this once you're back on your feet." It had been an hour since Rayleigh had put an end to the fight and escorted Roger back to the safety of Oro Jackson. Earlier, when I observed the worried expressions of the Roger pirates, it was clear they had never witnessed their captain in such a disadvantaged state. Despite Roger's desire to continue the fight, Rayleigh had forcefully taken him back to the ship. Even Garp had lost his urge to fight, sensing that something was wrong with his longtime rival. With Oro Jackson now out of sight, Garp was deep in thought, pondering over the events that had transpired. No one dared disturb him as he contemplated the unexpected turn of events. A week had passed since the intense clash with the Roger pirates, and Garp's mood remained somber. News of the Oro Jackson's departure from the New World waters towards the first half of the Grand Line reached him, indicating their likely destination to find Dr. Crocus near Reverse Mountain, where the Twin Cape Lighthouse stood. Chapter 35. Lost in his thoughts, Garp stared out at the horizon until my voice broke his reverie. "Why didn't you continue the fight, Garp-san? I'm sure you could have pressed your advantage," I casually remarked from my position on the ship's rail. Garp's gaze returned to the sea, his expression unreadable. Rayleigh intervened. "It wasn't wise to continue, and our forces were outmatched against the Roger pirates," he replied, keeping his true thoughts guarded. "But that's not the real reason, is it, Garp-san? Roger is sick, and you know it. Yet you haven't relayed this message to headquarters, nor have you shared it with Bogart-san," I pressed, recognizing the deeper concerns beneath the surface. "But our difference in combat strength was never an issue for you. I've seen you jump headfirst into battles, even when you were alone. There were so many times Bogart-san had to drag you back onto the ship after both you and Roger fell unconscious. I'm sure you could have handled the Dark King," I said with a smirk, needling Garp with my observations. Garp turned to me with a stern look, expecting an accusation. "So what are you getting at, brat? Are you accusing me of letting Roger go?" he asked, his tone edged with suspicion, ready to retaliate. "Why would I do that, Garp-san? I just wonder why you spoke to Kong-san and had him increase Roger's bounty." "I don't think he has done anything recently that warranted such an increase," I replied calmly, pulling out a new set of bounty posters issued at Garp's behest. It seemed that Garp was looking out for Roger in his own way, using the increased bounty as a deterrent against other pirates and giving Roger and his crew some breathing space, especially now that Garp knew Roger was sick. With a grunt, Garp took a copy of Roger's new bounty. The increase was significant, now standing at 2,886,900,000 belly, a full 500 million increase from his last bounty. In the current era, a pirate with a 2 billion belly bounty was considered an absolute overlord. Roger was now one of 3 pirates with more than 2 billion in bounty to their name, surpassing the other 2 competitors, the remnants of the Rocks pirates, Golden Lion Shiki, and Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard. With this increase, Roger held the title of pirate with the highest bounty. Normally, such a bounty increase could only be approved by the world government, but somehow Garp had managed to secure it for Roger. "So are we going to pursue the Roger pirates? And by the way, Garp-san, do you know Kaido's bounty has also increased?" I couldn't help but curiously ask, eager for Garp's response. However, Garp had other ideas. "Brat, it seems like I've been lenient with your training. You have so much time to blabber all this nonsense instead of practicing. Come, let me personally teach you, Garp said, turning towards where I was sitting. With a swift movement, he reached out and caught me by the collar of my shirt, lifting me up effortlessly. Despite my struggles, I couldn't escape Garp's firm grip. Resigned to my fate, I prepared myself for what followed a grueling 2 weeks of hell, which Garp referred to as training. I endured it all until our marine ship returned to Marineford. In a remote port town nestled among the rugged seas of the New World, chaos reigned supreme as a ruthless pirate crew descended upon its unsuspecting inhabitants. The once peaceful streets now echoed with the sounds of terror and despair as the pirates unleashed their wrath upon the defenseless town. Amidst the chaos, a young woman with fear in her eyes huddled with her child in a dark alley, desperately trying to avoid the marauding pirates. "Shh, my dear, stay quiet," she whispered to her children, her voice trembling with fear. "We must hide until the pirates pass." But her efforts were in vain as a group of pirates, their faces twisted with malice, stumbled upon them. Well, what do we have here?" One of the pirates sneered, his voice dripping with cruelty. "It looks like we've stumbled upon a little family reunion." The woman clutched her children tighter, her heart pounding in her chest as she braced herself for the worst. "Please, spare us," she begged, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have nothing of value, just let us go." But the pirate's laughter echoed off the walls of the alley as he advanced menacingly towards them. "Nothing of value, you say?" he scoffed, his eyes gleaming with greed. "I'll be the judge of that." As the pirate reached out to grab them, a sudden commotion erupted from the other end of the alley. A group of townsfolk, armed with whatever makeshift weapons they could find, emerged from the shadows, ready to defend their home. "Leave them alone, you filthy scum!" one of the townsfolk shouted, brandishing a rusted sword. The pirate's expression darkened, his amusement turning to fury as he turned his attention to the would-be defenders. "Looks like we've got ourselves a little resistance, boys," he growled, his hand tightening around the hilt of his sword. "Let's show these fools what happens when they dare to defy us." With a blood-curdling roar, the pirates charged forward, their weapons raised high as they clashed with the brave townsfolk. Amidst the chaos, the young woman seized the opportunity to escape, clutching her children tightly as she fled into the night, the sounds of battle fading behind them. Just as she was about to escape the clutches of these pirates, an axe buried itself into the woman's back. 3 pirates stepped forward, mocking the woman, who had been planning to escape with the children. The young mother and her children found themselves cornered by the merciless pirates. Hope seemed to wane with each passing moment, but a glimmer of courage sparked within one of the children as she bravely brandished a stick, determined to protect their mother at all costs. Ignoring the child's brave defiance by kicking the child away, the pirates closed in on the terrified woman, their intentions dark and sinister. With cruel laughter and lecherous grins, they discussed her fate with callous disregard for her pleas. "She's a beauty, ain't she?" one pirate sneered, his gaze lingering on the woman with predatory hunger. "I reckon the captain would enjoy her company." His companion chuckled darkly, suggesting a more sinister fate. "Nah, she won't last long. Let's have fun and be done with it." A slit throats quicker than a slow death. The mother's desperate pleas fell on deaf ears as the pirates advanced, their intentions clear. Desperation clawed at her heart as she urged her remaining child to flee, but the young one remained rooted to the spot, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clung to their mother. Suddenly, the alley was bathed in a spray of blood, shocking the pirate, who lay on top of the woman, into silence. 2 severed heads rolled at their feet, a gruesome testament to the arrival of an unexpected savior. A figure emerged from the shadows, towering over the scene with an imposing presence that seemed to command the very air around him. His name struck fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals, Whitebeard, the legendary pirate known as one of the most powerful men in the world. At around 40 years old, Whitebeard stood at an astonishing height, his massive frame dwarfing those around him. His broad shoulders seemed to carry the weight of countless battles, each scar on his weathered skin a testament to his strength and resilience. Despite his appearance, there was an undeniable aura of vitality and power that radiated from him, as if he were a force of nature unto himself. Whitebeard's face was weathered and rugged, and his sharp and piercing eyes held the wisdom of a man who had seen it all, yet they also glinted with a fierce determination that refused to be extinguished. His attire reflected his status as a formidable pirate captain. He wore a long, flowing coat adorned with the Jolly Roger of his crew, the Whitebeard pirates, and his iconic pirate hat cast a shadow over his face, adding to his mystique. Across his broad chest, the scars of countless battles crisscrossed, each one a testament to his indomitable spirit. In his hands, Whitebeard wielded a fearsome weapon, a massive poliarm adorned with intricate carvings and symbols of his authority. With each step, the ground seemed to tremble beneath his feet, a reminder of the raw power that he possessed. As he emerged from the darkness, his presence alone was enough to send shivers down the spines of the remaining pirates, who were now ravaging the town. In his arms, he cradled the child that had been kicked aside by the pirates earlier, his expression solemn as he gazed down at the innocent soul in his care. The child, wide-eyed and trembling, found solace in the safety of Whitebeard's embrace. Whitebeard. With a feeble attempt at defiance, the trembling pirate stuttered Whitebeard's name, but before he could muster any courage, justice was swift and unforgiving. Whitebeard's weapon cleaved through the darkness, delivering swift retribution and splitting the villainous pirate into two halves. Boom! Whitebeard planted his weapon on the ground, unleashing a seismic shockwave of conqueror's haki that radiated outward from him like a tsunami. The force was so immense that it stirred the very atmosphere, conjuring up ominous thunderstorm clouds overhead. Lightning crackled from Whitebeard's imposing figure as his haki swept across the island town, rendering many of the rampaging pirates unconscious in its wake. The sudden eruption of House Hoku brought the chaos to a temporary halt, leaving even the most hardened pirates stunned into silence. Those who remained standing trembled in fear, realizing they faced none other than Edward Newgate, the renowned overlord of the New World and the strongest man alive. "Run, run for your lives, you bastards! It's Whitebeard!" The enemy pirate captain, though defiant, knew better than to challenge such a formidable opponent and swiftly ordered a retreat. Whitebeard's fury was palpable as he bellowed commands, his voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "Kill them! Kill them all!" With a mighty swing of his arm, he focused his energy into a concentrated shockwave, forming a devastating sphere of power that he unleashed toward the anchored pirate fleet. In an instant, the massive ship splintered and shattered into pieces, consumed by the unstoppable force of Whitebeard's attack. And like a pride of hungry lions, the Whitebeard pirates descended upon the fleeing pirates, hunting them down mercilessly despite their desperate pleas for mercy. The skirmish was swift and decisive, as Whitebeard and his formidable crew systematically eradicated the pirate group from existence. However, despite the timely intervention and heroism displayed by the Whitebeard pirates, many among the townsfolk remained hesitant to approach them. The stigma associated with pirates lingered heavily, casting a shadow of fear over the grateful but wary populace. Despite this apprehension, two young children played fearlessly next to Whitebeard, who sat in a relaxed posture, indulging in a large vat of wine. Sitting next to Whitebeard was Odin, a formidable figure with a rugged yet noble appearance. His muscular frame exuded strength and determination, accentuated by his weathered features that bore the marks of countless battles and adventures. "Odin, how about we stay on this island for some time? It would be good for your child," Whitebeard suggested, regarding Odin as a brother and respecting him for his strength and adventurous spirit. Odin's wife, Toki, had recently given birth to Momonosuke, so Whitebeard felt it would be better for Toki and the child to stay on land rather than in the open seas for the time being. Odin, already flushed with wine, nodded with gratitude towards his captain. He had recently been promoted to the 2nd Division commander, and he would always be grateful to Whitebeard for allowing him aboard his ship. "Odin, are you not worried? It seems like that brat Kaido somehow escaped from Garp's clutches and has now nestled himself in Wano." Whitebeard couldn't help but express his concern, knowing well the ruthless nature of Kaido from their days under Rock's pirates. Chapter 36. "It's all right, Whitebeard-san. I am sure Kaido wouldn't dare pull anything within Wano. Wano is a land of warriors, and if Kaido thinks he can control Wano by force, then he is a fool," Odin reassured, his confidence in the resilience of Wano evident. He didn't worry much about Kaido taking refuge in Wano, understanding that he didn't have the right to intervene as he was a pirate himself, having left Wano behind to fulfill his dreams. "Well, in case you want to crush that brat, just let me know anytime. I will go to Wano and kick that brat and teach him not to mess with my brother." Whitebeard laughed heartily, offering Odin his assistance if needed regarding matters concerning Kaido. "No, Whitebeard-san. Even if Kaido tries something in the future, I am more than capable of handling him. It wouldn't be in line with my samurai code if you fought my battle for me," Odin jovially declined Whitebeard's offer. He was a warrior at heart, committed to facing his own challenges without relying on others to solve his problems. While Whitebeard and Odin were discussing taking a short break on the island and matters relating to Wano, a commotion caught both of their attention. Whitebeard sent the little kids playing by his side back to their mother, who nodded gratefully and left the area. Noticing Marco, an subordinate under him and a member of the 1st Division he recently created, Whitebeard gestured for Marco to approach and explain the situation. "Marco, what seems to be the commotion out there?" Whitebeard gestured in a certain direction while taking a gulp of wine. "Pops, it's an orphan kid. He says he wants to join our crew." Marco quickly briefed Whitebeard on the situation. An orphan kid was insisting on meeting Whitebeard directly to join their ship. Although many of the other division commanders had offered to take the kid under their wing, the child was adamant about meeting Whitebeard. Whitebeard had a soft spot for orphans. Most of the young ones in his crew were once orphans whom Whitebeard had taken under his wing and raised as his own sons. So, when Whitebeard heard that there was an orphan kid who wanted to join his crew, his curiosity was piqued. "Come, Marco, let's go and see who the kid is. Maybe you'll have a new brother today." Whitebeard rose from his seat and walked in the direction where the orphan child was, followed by Odin. As Whitebeard and Odin approached the commotion, they were met with a scene that stirred something deep within them. Amidst the chaos stood a seemingly orphaned child, his eyes filled with determination and longing. The child's gaze met Whitebeard's, and there was an unspoken plea in his eyes. With a gesture from Whitebeard, the crew parted, and a small figure emerged from the crowd, its tiny frame barely noticeable against the backdrop of towering buildings and bulky pirates. The child, with dirt-streaked cheeks and torn clothes, approached the legendary Whitebeard with a mixture of trepidation and desperation. With each step, the child's determination seemed to waver, but an inner resolve kept pushing him forward. "Please, sir. Please let me join your crew." The child's voice was barely a whisper, choked with emotion as tears streamed down his cheeks. He fell to his knees, his hands clasped in a plea for acceptance. Whitebeard regarded the child with a mix of curiosity and wariness. He sensed something unusual about this seemingly ordinary orphan, something that tugged at the edges of his intuition. But beneath the gruff exterior of the feared pirate captain lay a heart of compassion, a soft spot for those in need. "Why do you wish to join my crew, child?" Whitebeard's voice rumbled like distant thunder, his piercing gaze fixed on the trembling figure before him. The child's eyes brimmed with tears as he struggled to find the words. I have nowhere else to go. My parents are gone, and I have no family left. Please, sir. I want to be strong like you. I want a family." Whitebeard's expression softened at the child's earnest plea, but still, he hesitated. There was an unspoken weight to this encounter, a sense of destiny unfolding before his eyes. "And what is your name, child?" Whitebeard's voice was gentle now, a stark contrast to his fearsome reputation. The child took a deep breath, steeling himself for the revelation. My name is Marshall D. Teach. Are you sure that's the ship we need to target?" A man pointed out a ship that was sailing calmly under the night sky. A pirate ship was stealthily following a world government vessel, engaged in a risky endeavor. However, this mission wasn't undertaken without reason. A new underworld power in North Blue was offering a hefty reward of 20 million belly for every child rescued and delivered to the Donquixote family in North Blue. The Donquixote family had recently emerged as a dominant force in the North Blue, thanks to their revolutionary weaponry. Their influence was spreading across the seas, with their arms trade expanding into the Grand Line. Many kingdoms sought out their weapons, paying a premium for their quality. These pirates had been approached by a member of the Donquixote family to rescue children from a specific ship. This ship was transporting children destined to become child soldiers for the world government. While the task seemed reckless, the promise of a substantial reward outweighed the risks. The Donquixote family had provided precise details about the target vessel, raising questions about how a mafia family acquired information about a world government operation. Nonetheless, for these pirates, money spoke louder than questions of morality or legality in this unforgiving world. "Yes, that's the one mentioned. But Captain, why don't we just capture some random kids and then send them to the Donquixote family?" A crewmate questioned his captain regarding switching the children. After all, the Donquixote family had offered a staggering 20 million belly for each rescued child. As long as they captured a random 100 children and handed them over, they could earn a total of 2 billion belly, a fortune in the current era. Smack! The captain quickly smacked his subordinate hard across the head, causing him to sprawl on the deck. "Are you a moron? Do you think the Donquixote family would have shared such specific details if they didn't know what the ship was carrying? For all we know, they are looking for a specific child among the bunch. And what if we couldn't deliver the right child from among the bunch? Then all our effort would go down the drain. The captain knew the risks that accompanied this near-suicidal mission. However, he and his crew needed money, and the Don Quixote family's offer came at the right time. They were prepared for the next phase of their journey, the New World. They weren't planning to kill the world government agents aboard the ship, if possible, but rather to grab all the children and escape. Meanwhile, in North Blue, Doflamingo was eagerly awaiting an update regarding a certain matter they had assigned to another pirate crew. He was seated cross-legged, while Diamante sat opposite him, both staring at the transponder snail placed on the small table in front of them. Diamante had no idea why Doflamingo was paying so much attention to this particular matter. They had taken absolute care to ensure that their involvement was not disclosed. Doflamingo had even avoided using the underworld channels to contact the pirate crew assigned to this mission. Doffy, tell me, did Ross tell you something special about this particular world government transport? There are so many world government ships that transfer child soldiers to the Grand Line, so why target this one in particular? We had to shell out so much money to bribe the officers to get you the details you were looking for, Doffy. Diamante couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer. Recently, Doflamingo had been bribing Marine and world government officials in charge of child soldiers within Paradise left and right, and almost after 3 months, Doflamingo declared that he wanted to rescue all the children on this one particular ship without disclosing their involvement. Tell me, Diamante, what's the rarest resource in this damned world? Doflamingo looked at Diamante and questioned him with a smile. Diamante was confused. How was he supposed to answer such a vague question without knowing Doflamingo's train of thought? So, he simply shook his head. Talent, Diamante, talent. In this world where might makes right, talent and potential are the rarest resources, and my brother has given us a chance to acquire one of the apex talents in this world, Doflamingo said with delight evident in his voice. As Doflamingo grew and learned about how this world works, he started realizing the true worth of the information that Rosinante shared with him. When Ross shared that they had a chance to get their hands on a child who would be hailed as the greatest genius in the past 8 centuries and who had yet to give his loyalty to the world government, Doflamingo immediately wanted to bring the kid under the Don Quixote family. Doflamingo was already sure that his brother had some kind of prophetic ability and was able to peek into the future, or maybe get a glance at it. If not, there was no way Ross could give him such information. So, he wanted to guard his brother's secret even more now. He had already buried this secret deep in his heart and was resolved to take it to his grave if need be. Diamante was taken aback by the sudden revelation, a genius never before seen in the past 8 centuries. How did Doflamingo even come up with such a conclusion? But the way Doflamingo was handling the situation, Diamante could feel that what Doflamingo said might have some truth in it. He now felt more and more sure that following Doflamingo was the right choice. Originally a teen who couldn't survive the horrors of the New World, he retreated back to the safety of North Blue and became part of a criminal gang, but now he has a chance under Doflamingo. He could soon enough step into the New World and grow to be a powerhouse one day. But Doffy, I understand the need for all this secrecy, but haven't you left this task to a pirate group? What if they choose to betray us later and disclose that it was our family that targeted the world government ship? And such a genius do you think that the world government will not pursue? Diamante couldn't help but ask in confusion because the pirates assigned to the task were a loophole. Ha 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 ha, Diamante, do you think I would make such an amateur mistake? Those bastards think that I do not know they were the ones who attacked one of our weapon shipments in Paradise. We will simply eradicate them after they hand over the children. As for the world government, they still do not know the true talent of this kid yet, so I am guessing they wouldn't really care much about a single shipment. And even if they want to target someone, they will only go in circles, Doflamingo said with a cruel smirk on his face. His expression really did not match his young demeanor, it was as if Doflamingo had been possessed by the devil itself. Just then, the transponder snail on the table started ringing. With Doflamingo's permission, Diamante picked up the call and had a brief conversation with the other side before disconnecting. Doffy, it seems like those pirates came through. They have the children, but the ship had close to 5 dozen children. Are you sure that you want to take everyone in? All these children are under 3 years old. We will turn ourselves into a little orphanage at this rate, Doffy, Diamante couldn't help but ask. Despite being cruel to the bone, Doflamingo cared for his family and had a strange habit of caring for the abandoned ones who had the will to strive and survive in this cruel world, taking them under the Don Quixote family's wing. Originally, the Don Quixote family had only 6 members in total, but now it was one huge family, although the inner circle was the only one Doflamingo truly cared for. The inner circle already had more than a dozen people. Chapter 37. Well, it's fate that these children were on the same ship as the one we were looking for. In the future, we will need quite a few loyal hands to take care of our family, so let's raise these children. I am sure at least a few decent ones will come out of the remaining children. Have Gila take care of the children like our own family and groom them once they are here. And Diamante, once we get the children, I want you to dispose of every last pirate, but make sure to find out what happened to our shipment before you kill them off. Doflamingo crossed his fingers and passed his commands, then started making plans on how he should groom these children, who would very well become part of the inner circle. Understood, Doffy. Rest assured, I will take care of everything, Diamante assured, putting down the transponder snail and dispersing like a murder of crows. Doflamingo couldn't help but smirk at the way Diamante was showing off his Logia power of the soot fruit. As Doflamingo contemplated the situation with the children and the future of their family, his thoughts involuntarily drifted to his brother, Rosinante. Ros had been away from the family for almost 3 years now, embarking on his own journey for reasons that only he fully understood. Although they kept in touch through the transponder snail from time to time, Doflamingo couldn't help but sigh when thinking about how much his brother was doing for the family, even in his absence. With a sense of frustration and determination, Doflamingo clenched his fist. If only he had the strength, then his brother wouldn't have to struggle so much for their future. He felt a deep sense of responsibility as the elder brother, a desire to protect and support Ros in any way he could. It pained him to see his brother facing challenges alone, but it also fueled his resolve to become stronger himself. Standing up from his seat, Doflamingo made his way to the training grounds. He needed to push himself further in mastering Haki, honing his skills and abilities so that he wouldn't be an embarrassment when his brother returned in the future. With each step, he reaffirmed his commitment to his family and his determination to ensure their success and prosperity, no matter the obstacles they faced in the future. It had been almost 3 years since I joined the Marines to train under Garp, and those years had been incredibly rewarding for me. My experiences in the new world had accelerated my growth to an alarming level. Currently, I found myself enthusiastically punching a decommissioned battleship during training, fully immersed in the physical exertion. Accompanying me in this training session was Virgo, who had seamlessly integrated himself into the Marines since joining. Under Zephyr's tutelage, Virgo had shown steady growth and improvement. Despite our familial connection, we maintained the facade that I only knew him as Zephyr's adopted son. So that's where you guys were. You sure are diligent, Kuzan casually remarked as he strolled into our training area. It was a restricted section of the shipyard, accessible only to Garp and a select few of his confidants. Despite the decommissioned status of the ships, they still held value for the Marines due to the sea stone lining underneath most of them, making it an essential resource ground. Kuzan had been undergoing rigorous training under Zephyr at Garp's recommendation and had recently achieved the rank of Commodore, a remarkable feat accomplished in record time. I paused my punching routine to acknowledge the future Admiral's presence. Kuzan-san, congratulations on your promotion. It seems you're the youngest Commodore in Marine history, I quipped, teasing him lightly. Look who's speaking, a 12-year-old commander, Kuzan retorted with a smirk. I think you hold the record for the youngest Marine officer. Even Zephyr-san and your friend Virgo here joined the Marines at a more mature age, but here you are, already a high-ranking officer. Kuzan's jest reminded me of my recent promotion by the elders, following their request to nurture me within the Marines. Along with the promotion came a rare gift, a crystal Logia fruit from the elders' collection. It was one of the most powerful Logia types, akin to the magma and glitter fruits. I couldn't decide whether to praise the elders for their generosity or laugh at their unwitting contribution to empowering their future adversaries. Virgo, standing by my side, acknowledged Kuzan's presence with a respectful bow, to which Kuzan responded with a curt nod. I couldn't help but admire how well Virgo had assimilated into his role. He was grooming himself to be the epitome of a Marine, and many within Marineford had already taken notice of Zephyr's son, believing him to be a future powerhouse of the Marines, much like his father. Seriously, looking at you guys working so hard at such a young age makes me feel ashamed, Kuzan remarked with a hint of jest. Despite occasional differences in opinions between us, Kuzan and I shared a warm friendship. He appreciated my candidness, even if it sometimes challenged the Marine hierarchy. He understood that my intentions were rooted in truth, and he aimed to shape himself to challenge the status quo within the Marines. So, tell me, Kuzan-san, what brought you here? I remember Garp-sensei mentioning a meeting for all high-ranking officers, commodores, and above. Has the meeting already concluded? I inquired. There hadn't been any major change in the past few months within New World since Roger's departure following his clash with Garp. However, just a day prior, Marine intelligence confirmed that the Roger pirates were en route to the New World again. An emergency meeting was called to intercept them before they could enter. Garp proposed a plan to trap Roger in the Sabayati archipelago before they could venture further into the New World. Kuzan gestured for me to follow him, and I realized he wanted to discuss a sensitive topic away from Virgo's presence. Hastily gathering my things, I bid Virgo farewell and trailed after Kuzan toward the headquarters. The new HQ was an absolute marvel. It had been fully remodeled into a formidable war fortress. After the devastating attack by the Blood Skull pirates, Kong spared no expense in fortifying the entire island of Marineford. Now, any pirate would think twice before even venturing close to the waters surrounding Marine HQ. So, tell me, Kuzan-san, what is it that you couldn't share in the presence of Virgo? I'm sure he'll get wind of it from his father soon enough, I mentioned, acknowledging Virgo's special status within Marineford. Well, the meeting ended abruptly. Kuzan began, his expression darkening at the mention of celestial dragons. Garp-san wanted to confront Roger before he entered the New World again, but orders from higher UPS came through, forbidding any engagement with the Roger pirates near Sabayati, especially now that a celestial dragon is planning to visit the island. Ah, so Garp-san and the fleet admiral had another argument? I interjected, eyebrows raised in surprise. Yes, exactly, Kuzan confirmed. With the world nobles and Roger pirates converging on Sabati, Kong-san doesn't want to take any chances. He wants both Sengoku-san and Garp-san taking point. But how did Garp-sensei agree to such a request? You wouldn't have come to me if he hadn't agreed, I pressed, curious about Garp's acquiescence to the mission despite his disdain for the world nobles. Oh, that was simple, Kuzan replied. Kong-san threatened Garp-sensei with cancelling his vacation for the next 3 years and freezing his snack budget indefinitely if he didn't agree to the mission. I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought. Threatening Garp's snack benefits was indeed a surefire way to ensure his compliance. But then Garp-san came up with a compromise, Kuzan continued. He suggested that we take over the mission of escorting the world nobles, and he would only intervene if the Roger pirates attacked. Otherwise, he'll remain at Marine Base in Grove 66 until the world nobles return to their abode. It was a typical Garp compromise, finding a way to fulfill his duty while still maintaining his principles. So, Garp-san made us the scapegoats, hey. I couldn't help but chuckle at the so-called compromise. Garp-san becomes really smart when it comes to dealing with world nobles, trying to find some sort of loophole to avoid interacting with them. So when are we to leave, Kuzan-san? I'm sure you are looking forward to your meeting with the world nobles. I couldn't help but tease Kuzan. Like Garp, Kuzan, who was the apprentice of Garp, had a similar dislike for world nobles, and having to play escort to them was more like an insult to him. Well, we need to leave in 3 days. The world nobles will be leaving for Sabati in a week from now. Kuzan shared the schedule for our upcoming escort mission. Since joining the Marines, this was my first time joining a mission related to world nobles. Because my direct superior, Garp, would always find some sort of reason to redirect such missions. The next day, early in the morning, I was at the elite training camp. I had a habit of using the facilities because they were top-notch, and one couldn't expect such luxury in training equipment while out on the sea. So, I was making full use of these resources while I was in Marineford. The clang of the weights echoed through the elite training camp as I pushed through yet another rep, the heavy barbell loaded with an unthinkable amount of weight. Beads of sweat dripped from my forehead, glistening like pearls under the harsh lights of the gym. Despite the early hour, a few other elite recruits had gathered around, their eyes wide with a mix of awe, shock, and perhaps a hint of fear. Virgo, usually composed and stoic, couldn't hide his astonishment as he watched me effortlessly lift the massive weight. His expression spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the monstrous stamina and strength I possessed. With each repetition, I pushed myself further, my muscles burning with exertion but refusing to yield. As most of the elite recruits had vacated, the gym now had only a few individuals scattered around, each engrossed in their own training routines. Admiral Zephyr approached where I was pushing myself to carry out a few more reps, patiently waiting by the side as I pushed my limits. It took another 5 minutes before I finally set the bar back in a safe position, slowly sitting up amidst my drenched state. I was soaked head to toe, resembling someone who had just emerged from a swim rather than a weightlifting session. After taking a few deep breaths and steadying myself, I stood up to greet the Marine Admiral standing before me. Despite any disagreements I may have had with Zephyr's idealistic approach of treating all lives as equal and refraining from killing pirates, I couldn't deny my respect for the man's strength and unwavering principles. In the canon, he continued to uphold his beliefs even after the loss of his family, a testament to his unyielding resolve. I couldn't help but wonder if I would possess such steadfastness if faced with a similar tragedy. Zephyr-san, I acknowledged with a respectful bow, showing my admiration for his leadership and dedication to his ideals. Ross, you're destined to become a pillar of the Marines in the future. I wish I had discovered you before Garp did. He never ceases to boast about you, Zephyr remarked with genuine admiration. Initially, I was puzzled as to why Garp, who was staunchly against taking disciples, accepted you under his wing, especially considering he had just taken Kuzan as his apprentice not long before. But now I understand why. I wouldn't mind giving up an arm to have an apprentice like you. Zephyr's praise was effusive, especially after witnessing the full extent of my talents. He couldn't help but commend me, having never seen anyone endure Garp's tutelage for so long at such a young age. Even Kuzan, at times, would grumble about the harshness of Garp's training. According to Garp himself, I could handle anything he threw at me, adapting to the grueling regimen instead of complaining. Chapter 38. As Zephyr observed Ross, he couldn't help but recall Garp's words about the young Marine in front of him. Ross is a child of focus, commitment, and sheer will. It's something many people know very little about, echoed in his mind. The weight of those words settled on him, emphasizing the exceptional nature of Ross's character. To endure Garp's rigorous training regime at such a tender age required a level of determination and resilience that few possessed. It was a testament to Ross's extraordinary potential and his capacity to become a formidable asset to the Marines. Zephyr-san, you exaggerate, I deflected humbly, unwilling to accept too much praise. I still have quite a way to go, and I've heard rumors around Marineford of a certain young Marine recruit who might be able to match my talent, isn't that right, Zephyr-san? Redirecting the conversation toward Virgo, I couldn't help but acknowledge the remarkable progress of Zephyr's adopted son. Since the attack on Marineford, Virgo has earned a special place in Zephyr's heart, his loyalty and bravery shining through. Despite not possessing the same monstrous talent as myself, Virgo's potential to become a Marine Admiral was undeniable. Learning that Virgo had consumed a mythical Zoan-type devil fruit only heightened expectations, with both Zephyr and Kong eagerly anticipating Virgo's growth into a future Marine powerhouse. Zephyr-san, I need your advice on resistance training, I requested, getting straight to the point, knowing Zephyr appreciated efficiency over ceremony. Zephyr raised his brow at the mention of resistance training, a specialized regimen tailored for devil fruit users. The drawback of consuming a devil fruit was well known: it rendered one powerless in the sea, turning them into a landlubber vulnerable to the sea's influence and the restraining power of sea stone. Ross, as far as I'm aware, you're not a devil fruit user. Why do you want to know about this advanced training method? Zephyr inquired, intrigued by my interest in the subject. Ah, Zephyr-san, I recently came across a rare Logia fruit, I began, offering a partial truth. I'm considering consuming it, but I want to weigh the disadvantages against the advantages. Garp-sensei mentioned resistance training, so I thought I should learn more about it before making a decision. While this was indeed part of my motivation, my true intent was to acquire the knowledge to protect my family. With more members of the Donkyuksodi family's inner circle becoming devil fruit users, mitigating their vulnerability to sea stone became paramount. I still vividly remember the event in canon where Marco, the 1st Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates, became a sitting duck after being shackled by sea stone cuffs. So I have already made up my mind. Until I find a devil fruit that truly suits me, I'm content with becoming an apex powerhouse, relying on my haki and swordsmanship. By sharing my concerns and objectives, I hope to glean valuable insights from Zephyr-san to safeguard my family in the future. A Logia devil fruit, you say? Well, as long as one doesn't overly rely on devil fruits and simultaneously hones their haki prowess, the addition of the devil fruit can be advantageous. But honestly, only a select few can truly master both of these powers to the extreme simultaneously, especially considering a Logia devil fruit, its awakening will be a huge task in itself. However, I'm sure with your talent, you should be able to achieve what many others fail to do, reach the apex in both haki and devil fruit abilities. Zephyr gave his honest opinion regarding whether I should opt for a devil fruit. He continued, and yes, I forgot that you also train in swordsmanship, right? Well, if you want my advice, then I would suggest first considering whether you can handle training in all these aspects to the extreme. Being mediocre in one of these aspects will be of no use to you in the future, especially when facing apex powerhouses. I'm sure you've heard the famous saying, one should fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. Similarly, unless you are confident you can hone all three skills to the extreme, don't pick a devil fruit. Zephyr's words were insightful, reminding me of the importance of mastery in each aspect of combat. It was a decision that required careful consideration, as each path carried its own challenges and rewards. I understand, Zephyr-san. So, can you please teach me about the resistance training so that I can make a decision after getting all the facts straight? I asked, bringing Zephyr back to the topic that I really wanted answers on. The man before me had a tendency to delve deep into his teachings, and while I appreciated his insights, I couldn't afford to spend too much time learning things I had already covered with Garp. Oh, yes, resistance training. Fine, I will help you with the training. I know that Garp has been assigned to the Sabati mission. How about you find me once you return to Marineford after you complete that mission? I will ask Garp to leave you under my care for a few months while I train you. Zephyr quickly made a decision to train me in the aspects that I was still lacking after I returned from the Sabati mission. 2 days later, as Garp's ship set sail for Sabati, I stood on the deck, watching as Marineford disappeared into the horizon. Kuzan had joined us for this mission, standing by my side as we prepared for the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, Admiral Sengoku's ship departed for Marigiosa, where he would be escorting the world nobles 3 days later. The tension in Marineford was palpable as preparations were made for the high-stakes mission, especially now that the Roger pirates were rumored to be heading to Sabati around the same time. Say, Ross, do you think the Roger pirates will cause some sort of commotion? Kuzan's voice cut through the air, reflecting the unease that many felt at the thought of Roger and his notorious crew returning to the New World. Despite Roger's current status as one of the overlords of the New World, alongside Whitebeard and Shiki, the world government held a special interest in Roger and his crew. Their history, including their involvement in taking down the legendary Rocks pirates, made them a constant source of concern for the authorities. Kuzan-san, I don't think the Roger pirates will cause as much commotion as you think, I replied, contemplating the situation. If you ask me, this whole mission is a farce. Do you really believe the Roger pirates have no better work than causing trouble at Sabati, especially when they're eager to return to the New World? I knew for a fact that Roger, aware of his illness, dreamed of circumnavigating the world and was currently on the hunt for clues regarding the remaining poneglyphs. With such a monumental goal driving him, it seemed unlikely that he would divert his attention from his main objective to interfere with the world nobles' affairs at Sabati. Kuzan-san, you should be much more concerned about how you'll handle being around the world nobles. Your entire belief in your so-called justice will be challenged when you are in the presence of the celestial dragons, and you might find yourself having to grovel before them. Are you prepared for that? I knew Kuzan disliked it when I brought up such topics. He was still not a man who believed in acquiescing to unjust authority. Ross, you speak as if you know what true justice means, Kuzan replied, his curiosity evident. Despite knowing each other for more than 3 years, he still struggled to understand the depths of my character. There was something about me that made him feel as though I had experienced more than a typical 12-year-old. It's just a gentle reminder, Kuzan-san. I don't want to see you stripped of your rank just because you couldn't keep your cool. And as for your question, there's nothing called true justice in this world, it's merely an illusion. As long as you're the winner, what you say is considered justice. However, that's just my opinion. I spoke from a perspective shaped by experiences in a different world, where even in a purportedly democratic society, justice often seemed like a facade. You need to be aware that both Garp-sensei and Bogard-san are going to just settle down at Grove 66 and leave all the matters regarding the celestial dragons to us, I couldn't help but say jovially while I eyed Garp, who was pretending to be asleep and eavesdropping on our conversation. After a short trip from Marineford, our ship neared the destination, Sabayati Archipelago, a group of islands located near the entrance to the New World in the One Piece world. It serves as a major hub for pirates, traders, and travelers. The archipelago is characterized by its unique bubble-like trees called banshee, which are crucial for coating ships to enable them to travel to Fishman Island. The islands are numbered in groves from 1 to 80, each with its own distinct features and functions. As the marine warship docked near Grove 66, Garp immediately ran off onto the base, probably to sleep, leaving all the duties to myself and Cusin. Grove 66 is known for its marine base and is where marine ships often dock. Sabayati is truly a bustling island filled with markets, shops, and entertainment venues catering to the diverse population of pirates, traders, and marines. However, it can also be a dangerous place, with clashes between different factions and threats from powerful pirate crews. Just a few minutes after I landed on Grove 66, I opened an exquisite-looking box, with Cusin by my side eyeing me curiously. "Ross, you might be the only one in the Marines who would openly showcase your pirate family's products." "Such an ingenious marketing strategy," Cusin remarked, his gaze fixed on an exquisite-looking sniper rifle in my hand. The weapon looked quite powerful. "Cusin-san, that's slander. My family has yet to involve themselves in piracy. We are honest merchants, we just trade with all parties," I declared without shame, though the word yet seemed to catch Cusin's attention. However, he didn't press further. As Ross said, the current Don Quixote family, despite most of them having bounties on their heads, primarily engaged in underground deals and handled complaints with bribes. Only in North Blue did they wield a bit of strength at sea. "Is this an upgrade from the previous models?" Cusin couldn't help but ask. This wasn't the first time Ross had introduced such novel weapons, and his unique marketing approach had attracted various parties to approach the Don Quixote family for deals. Even the marine bases in North Blue had engaged in business dealings with the Don Quixote family. "Sigh, I am not even sure why Garpsan lets you do all these things, keeping in touch with pirates, testing illegal weapons. You should keep in mind, Ross, you are a Marine commander," Cusin berated me. He felt that my connection with my family was influencing me to be nonchalant about the Marines and what they stand for. Poor fellow, little did he know that I was responsible for my family's monstrous growth in just 3 years. Back in canon, the best Daffy achieved in 3 years might have been burning a few towns for having a crooked path. In canon, Daffy was a nobody at 15. But now, in this life, because of me, Daffy could already be considered a big shot in North Blue, especially with his new bounty recently updated at 64 million belly. The Don Quixote family was now a giant in weapons manufacturing. "Ross, I am curious, aren't you worried about your family's involvement in the underworld being exposed? I know that most deals in the underworld happen anonymously to keep each party's identity a secret," Cusin inquired, intrigued by this particular point. He was well aware that the underworld operated on a principle of absolute secrecy, and all connections were shrouded in mystery. Ironically, this was mostly to avoid catching the Marines' attention, as some agreements were sometimes common knowledge within the underworld. Furthermore, to ensure the anonymity of the participants, it was customary to use aliases. Chapter 39. So what, Cusin-san, do you think the world government is not aware of such actions? Or do you think the Marines are so noble that they don't involve themselves in shady deals? No, Cusin-san, according to me, the biggest profiteers out of the underworld dealings would be the world government itself. Otherwise, why do you think they allow such a huge network to flourish? And like I said earlier, my family are just businessmen, we deal with all parties, we don't discriminate. I simply stated the truth of the matter, as I knew much more about the underworld than Cusin did. Even if the world knew that my family was involved in shady deals, no one could do anything about it. As long as our actions do not directly affect the interests of the world government, we can grow unimpeded. Currently, we only lack strength, which is why I have been honing myself so that I can return to my family once I am confident enough to clash against any kind of adversary. I saw Cusin's face turn ugly when I exposed the sick truth about the world government and the Marines, and he did not like it one bit, but he simply gritted his teeth because he knew what I said to be true. "Cusin-san, I am going to the lawless area to hunt some criminals. See you later," I said, picking up my things and quickly moving towards the lawless area. I made my way towards the selected destination, Grove 12. This area was infested with pirates and slavers, and there was even a huge warning sign against Marines here. Despite the sign, I simply strode into the lawless area, still garbed in my Marine officer's uniform, with just Sandei Kaititsuo and the case holding the new rifle. As I entered the grove, many of the pirates eyed me dangerously, and some had already started moving to intercept me, thinking that the young Marine was an easy pick. Just as I continued probing my surroundings with observation haki, suddenly a group of over a dozen pirates blocked my way while brandishing weapons. "Hee, look what we have here, boys. A lost lamb." "It seems like the kid must have stolen the Marine officer's uniform," the man in the lead chuckled, reaching out to grab my marine coat as he spoke. Say, little bastard, did you take this from your father? Would he pay to retrieve you back, or do you think it's better to sell you to the slaves? The man asked menacingly. However, my next action left the group bewildered. Instead of panicking or showing any sort of reaction, I simply pulled out a thick stack of bounties and started flipping through them. The man in the lead's face turned ugly as I casually went through the bounty posters. Suddenly, with anger brimming, he reached forward and grabbed at me. However, the next instant, what they expected did not happen. An arm flew into the air under everyone's astonished gazes. The pirates, who were experienced veterans of the New World, quickly moved away, realizing the situation after seeing how easily I cut off the pirate's arm. They chose caution because such a young elite wouldn't be without backup. The man whose arm I had just chopped off was now rolling on the ground in front of me in pain, while his companions stood frozen in fear. I continued to casually flip through the bounty posters, none of them having any idea of what exactly transpired. One moment their leader tried to threaten a young teen, and the next moment he was rolling on the ground with one arm less. Ah, there you are. Tisk, tisk, a mere 30 million bounty on your head, and you still have the audacity to venture into the New World. I finally found the bounty poster that I was looking for. The man, now crying and crippled in front of me, was just a small-time pirate who thought he could survive the seas of the New World just because he made it through the first half of the Grand Line safely. How naive of him. People like these were a dime a dozen, and they wouldn't even last a week within the New World. While the situation unfolded, the surrounding pirates had varied reactions. Many of the veterans chose caution. Although they believed in their strength, they were not foolish enough to target a marine who might be specially groomed to become an elite. Targeting someone like that without proper backing and strength was like a one-way ticket to hell. Sigh, I simply got excited thinking that you were some kind of big shot after looking at your entry. I unsheathed Kaititsuo again, this time I directly went for the kill. With a few clean strokes, my blade danced like silver lightning, and before they could react, the dozen pirates that had blocked my way now lay dead in front of me. After flicking my blade, I sheathed it while observing my surroundings again. I could detect varied emotions from the surrounding pirates, but there was one emotion and youth that caught my attention. A teen who appeared to be around 15 or 16 stood among them. As I observed the teen among the surrounding pirates, it became clear that he was no ordinary youth. His presence exuded an aura of confidence and skill beyond his years. Tall and lean, he stood with a graceful posture that hinted at years of disciplined training. Despite his youthful appearance, there was a maturity in his gaze that belied his age. His eyes, a piercing shade of amber, held a calm intensity that seemed to pierce through the chaos around him. Every movement he made was calculated and precise, displaying a level of control and mastery that was rare to see in someone so young. He was dressed in simple yet elegant attire, with a long black coat that billowed slightly in the breeze. At his side hung a formidable-looking sword. The infamous Yoru, which had yet to blacken, had a gleaming blade as a testament to the skill of its wielder. I could feel Kaititsuo slightly tremble in my arms, as if having met a worthy challenger. Even among the seasoned pirates surrounding him, he stood out as a force to be reckoned with. There was an air of mystery about him, as if he held secrets and untold stories beneath the surface. Despite his stoic demeanor, there was a fire burning within him, a determination to carve out his own path in the world of pirates and warriors. In that moment, as our eyes met briefly before I turned away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of recognition. There was something about him that seemed familiar, as if I had crossed paths with him before in another life. But for now, he remained an enigmatic figure amidst the chaos of Sabayati Island, a teenage Dracula Mihawk in the making. I did not probe further and severed the head of the pirate with the bounty before leaving to find a good spot to test my new weapon. Bang! Another pirate's head popped as I crossed out yet another pirate's bounty poster. With the superior range of my rifle, unless one had observation haki, there was no way a pirate could detect the incoming deadly projectile. Currently perched atop a tower in Grove 13, I picked out pirates who had left too much bloodshed in their wake. Such scum were too extreme even for my standards, so why not earn some good karma while I was at it? Well, let's see, that's the easiest 100 million I've ever made, I thought to myself. The lawless area was a haven for pirates, so it did not have a shortage of targets for me to hunt. Even within the Marines, if we could eliminate a pirate, the bounty could be reclaimed. Unlike others who could claim the total bounty amount, Marines could only receive 30% of the listed bounty. I had already been out on the hunt for more than 4 hours now, and with my extreme observation haki, it was easy to pick out targets who could be easily killed. I even carried sea stone bullets to eliminate pirates known to possess devil fruits. These kinds were rare, and I was only able to encounter one devil fruit user, a Zoan type. However, the bullet I fired was coated with haki and made of sea stone. The pirate, overly reliant on his devil fruit, fell with a single shot through the skull, instantly killing him. As I was scouting for my next target, I felt a very discreet sweep of observation haki pass through my location. If not for my high sensitivity, I would have easily missed it. Curious about the source of the probe, I searched for a few moments until I pinpointed its location. Instantly, I recognized the building from which the observation haki had originated. A smile unknowingly formed on my face. The haki user was quite skilled, as their ability to mask their presence after a quick probe was exceptional. I quickly packed my things and descended the tower. After a few minutes, I was standing in front of the infamous Shucky's rip-off bar. I casually entered the bar, noting its posh atmosphere contrasting with the rowdy area outside. Despite its upscale appearance, there weren't many customers, just 2 who were already sloshed enough. I was sure these 2 guys were going to suffer once they saw the bill. Using a light probe, I understood that they were planning to leave without paying because they only saw a single bartender lady behind the counter. I couldn't help but inwardly sigh and chuckle at their fate. Finally, I laid my eyes upon the former Empress of Amazon Lily and also the ex-captain of the Kuja pirates, a pirate who was personally chased by the marine hero until she quit piracy and started this bar. Not everyone can boast such an achievement. She was also known for being the hub of information exchange. Boy, haven't your elders taught you that staring at a lady for so long is considered rude? Shakiyaku, who was wearing a pink sleeveless top and a black jean while smoking a thin cigarette, casually questioned me, but I could detect a hint of curiosity hidden within her eyes. Miss, it is considered rude to probe someone using your observation haki, especially while masking your own presence. Some might think that you're planning something nefarious against a child like me, I taunted back. Maybe she already knows about me and was just wanting to know more. Her brows raised in surprise when she realized that her discreet probe had been detected, and her curiosity only deepened. Haha, I like you already, kid. Garp sure did find a little monster. I am not sure how far you will grow in the future, quite a few parties are interested in you. She exhaled the smoke away from me and snubbed the cigarette while pouring a glass of what seemed like orange juice and pushed it over to me while pouring a glass of scotch for herself and directed me to take a seat. It was my turn to be surprised by the news Shucky shared. I did not realize that there were parties interested in me. This was as good a time and place as any to collect information, so I casually sat at the offered place. Do I need to pay? I am not sure I can afford a drink at your place otherwise, I jested, knowing well that even if she wanted me to pay, I could afford it. Haha, child, I am sure you can afford it, but no, not this time. This one's on me as a token of apology for rudely probing you earlier. I was just curious about who would be so bold as to hunt pirates so openly in a lawless zone. At first, I thought it was some famous bounty hunter, but then I saw a little marine officer carrying a high-tech rifle and making almost impossible feats that even veteran marine snipers could fail to accomplish. I think the weapon you hold must be partially responsible for your inhuman marksmanship. May I? Shucky was not someone who stood on ceremony. Knowing that she had been found out, she did not hesitate to apologize, even if the person sitting in front of her was merely a child. Dear readers and fans, for those eager to dive into the next chapters of our One Piece saga before anyone else, I invite you to join me on Patreon. By becoming a patron, you'll not only gain access to exclusive advanced chapters but also play a pivotal role in shaping the future of our narratives and much more. Currently updated until Chapter 50. Chapter 40. I passed the rifle at hand over to Shucky, who carefully took the rifle. By the way she handled the weapon after just a single demonstration from me, I realized she must have been quite a formidable pirate during her time. She carefully inspected every inch of the weapon, and it was a good thing because she was an information broker, and having her first-hand experience with the weapon would spread its fame far and wide more easily. She is quite the beauty. Would you like to gift Big Sister the weapon as a meeting gift? Shucky couldn't help but take her eyes off the weapon. If it were anyone else, I might have straight away refused, but Shucky was different. I wanted her to be a part of the Donquixote family because her strength was a given, but what I valued more was her connections and ability to gather information. Shucky was a rare type of talent, and if a single rifle could help build better rapport with such a formidable figure, then I am all in. With a simple nod, I agreed to her request. Also, out of the backpack I was carrying, I took out a few cartridges and a couple of boxes of ammo for the rifle. Shucky might be a gun enthusiast like myself. She carefully examined and admired the things I gifted in detail. Once she was happy, she carefully set aside the rifle as if it were some antique and returned her attention back to me. So, tell me, kid, why are you here? You're not the type to randomly walk into my bar despite knowing my identity. And despite me being confident in my charm, I wouldn't believe a little monster like you would simply gift such a rifle. I'm sure this model has yet to hit the market for sale, Shakyako commented while taking a sip from her drink. Ah, Shucky-san, you are as brilliant as I have heard. I have tried to keep my identity and prowess a secret as much as possible, but it seems like you know more about me than you are letting out. Well, let me cut to the chase, Shucky-san. I want you to join my family and become a part of it. I stated my intention without holding back because trying to play puzzles with such characters will always end up blowing up in your face. Ho ho ho, quite the bold proposal you are making, little one. Does Garp know that you are offering me a position in your Don Quixote family despite being a marine yourself? Shucky couldn't help but ask. She knew about my brother Daffy and the infamous Don Quixote family, which had grown to a tremendous degree in just 3 years all the way from North Blue. Currently, their influence even extends to the first half of the Grand Line. They were a weird bunch, much more organized and driven. The Don Quixote family worked in such a way as if they were following a set of guidelines despite being involved in all crimes except for slavery. You could simply call them a group of villains with principles who might be after a grand goal. Shucky-san, you misunderstand. I am only learning under Garp-san. Even the officer position that I hold is simply a tether that some people laid out, thinking that it could bind me to the Marines. Trust me, in the near future, the whole world is going upside down. The tides will change, Shucky-san, and eventually, the people you care about will also be caught in that storm. You will need a strong family by your side to survive the said storm, and I am merely offering you a family who would stand by your side at all times, no matter how dangerous the adversary you face in the future might be, I offered, although I knew in the canon she made it out safely. But this was the real world, and anything can change. As Rayleigh's companion, in the near future, after Roger finds One Piece, she might be targeted by the world government. Even if not, I don't mind spouting a few lies if that could help make up her mind. Haha, kid, you sure are funny. After so many years of piracy, I finally settled down, leaving all that behind, and now you want me to join your family. I don't doubt your words, child, but no, I am happy with where I am, Shucky replied firmly. She wasn't going to rush into this decision because making such a choice involved too many factors, and she had come to like her current life and didn't want it disturbed. Fine, I understand, Shucky-san. But remember, my offer will always be open. If there ever comes a day in the near future when you need help, you can reach out to my brother, I said. I wasn't stupid enough to pressure Shucky into making a decision. If she chose to become part of the family, it would have to be of her own volition. So, I left a venue open in case she changed her mind later and pushed a transponder snail over to her. This will help you reach my family, and in case we need to make use of your services, Shucky-san, we will reach out to you through this. Of course, until you join us, we will pay the standard rates like proper businessmen, I added with a smirk on my face. Shucky was someone who could help us gather information, so even if she didn't join our family right away, it was advantageous to have a connection with such an information broker. Fine then, kid. I'll keep your offer in mind, Shucky said as she put away the transponder snail. My earlier words seemed to weigh on her, especially the mention of upcoming changes in the near future. Now that the important matter has been addressed, I am a bit curious about the parties that are interested in me. I couldn't help but ask because it's always better to be prepared, and an enemy in the dark is much more dangerous than one out in the open. Oh, curious, aren't you? There seems to be a bounty placed in the underworld for your capture, stating that you are an escaped slave owned by the world nobles. The bounty is quite attractive. The bounty order is to take you alive and return you back to the Holy Land, and you are currently worth 100 million in the black market, Shucky revealed, explaining why many parties were interested in finding me. Any idea who initiated the bounty order? And why is it that none of these so-called interested parties haven't found me yet? I am sure it's not a big deal for the underworld to get my picture, is it? I couldn't help but curiously ask because 100 million was quite a substantial amount, and quite a few parties should have tried to target me with that kind of money. Oh, you can thank Garp and your brother for that. Your brother and your family have been hunting down anyone within Paradise who has even remotely thought about your capture. Your brother is now in a full-blown conflict with the 5 families of the West. Just yesterday, that Logia user from your family, along with your brother and the rest of the Donquixote family, raised down an entire town in North Blue who were colluding with the mafia of the West. Your brother didn't even spare the Marines, who were supporting the 5 families. Only the innocents were spared, the whole town was burned to ashes. The world government has snubbed the news, but I am sure you can see a substantial increase in your brother's bounty soon. Shucky explained. There's a young swordsman seeking you out. Just like you, he has been hailed as the greatest swordsmanship genius the world has seen in the last century, and the child is very eager for a challenge and to cross swords with you, Shucky continued, her tone implying the gravity of the situation. I knew exactly who she was referring to because I had met the said teen just today. Me, a genius? I simply wave around my sword, and you should know better that Garp is my teacher, I remarked, a glint in my eyes betraying a mix of amusement and confidence. Despite not putting in much effort, my name within the Marines had spread, especially because of Bogard, who liked to boast among the higher UPS that I was an absolute genius when it came to swords. Additionally, due to Garp's clashes with high-profile pirates, I had to fight against many pirate groups. My prowess in swordsmanship had also become known among the upper echelons of the New World pirates. It seemed like Mihawk had caught wind of these rumors. Even though the current Mihawk was not hailed as the strongest swordsman in the world, his name was well known as an emerging rookie, and Mihawk had a habit of challenging powerful swordsmen to hone his skills further. With a smirk on her face, Shucky simply gestured to Sandei Kaititsu, now lying sheathed on the counter. Someone who could nurture a black blade at such a tender age claims that he simply waves around his sword. Do you think any decent warrior would believe your story? She chuckled while observing my goofy reaction. I was both frustrated and amazed because it had been only a couple of weeks since my Kaititsu had turned into a completely black blade, and Shucky already had such information. Haha, Shucky-san, you exaggerate. I was merely lucky. As for my hawk, let him know that if he is interested, I can accept his challenge. But it needs to be done within the coming 2 days, and I do not want any audience. I like to keep my cards close to my chest, I don't want my enemies to know what my true level is. I hope Shucky-san can do this little brother a favor, I remarked confidently. I knew for a fact that Shucky had some sort of connection with my hawk, otherwise, she wouldn't have brought up this topic. Oh, you are familiar with that kid, my hawk? Are you guys acquainted, or did the grumpy kid jump out of the crowd trying to challenge you for a sword fight? Shucky had a smile as she spoke about my hawk, but I wasn't too concerned about their connection. My hawk was someone I wanted to pull to my family's side. In the canon, his strength was undeniable, and he had always been a loner. I am currently not aware if my hawk was already wanted by the Marines or if he had the moniker Marine Hunter. If I hadn't met him by coincidence earlier today, I would have totally forgotten about him. But it seemed like fate was giving me a chance, and my hawk himself was wanting to challenge me. This was a good chance for me to try and recruit my hawk. If I am successful, then he could fill the ace position within our family ranks. But to achieve that, I had to beat my hawk head on. Although my hawk is currently a few years older than me, I am confident in my swordsmanship. What many did not know was that my greatest strength lay in my swordsmanship, and my talent with swords was even better than my talent with haki, which was already monstrous enough to grab Garp's attention originally. Ah, kids these days. All you young ones can think about is fighting all day, Shucky commented, as she didn't receive any response to her question. She pouted now that I was distracted by the upcoming bout with my hawk. Fine, I will let the kid know. I know a secluded spot in Grove 20, which should serve as a good place to spar away from prying eyes, Shucky offered. Hee, Shucky-san, who said it was going to be just a spar? Let him know I will face him the day after tomorrow. I am sure he will need time to maintain his peak state. I fear my blade doesn't know when to hold back, and as a duel between swordsmen, life and death are a trivial matter. I'm sure my hawk wouldn't want it any other way. Let him know not to hold back when we fight, because I will be fighting with the intent to kill. Although my words were said jokingly, my eyes held a cruel glint in them.
Thanks for listening.